Yes, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman, Alfred.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Greetings, Bat Family. Welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Please visit our website, holybatcast.com, if you want to check out all the different parts of Holy BatCast. You can also follow us on all your favorite social media channels on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. We are also on Patreon, so if you love the show so much that you want to show how much you love it, you can do that through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. We know you don't have to, and if you choose not to, hey, it's okay. I understand. We've got other things to deal with. But for those of you who have done it, it's just so generous and so wonderful, and it really does mean a lot to us. We're a part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so if you want to check out some of the other shows that are part of the network, you can do that at rf4rm.com. And as long as I'm bringing that up, it is time to officially plug the new show. Jamie. It's out there.
Yes. I like this show.
Oh, good. Thank you. So on the last couple episodes, I teased a new show is coming to the network that was going to be just another show for me because I just can't have enough of them. And it did launch between last episode and this episode. So me and my good friend Scotty, who you have heard on this show, we are doing a brand new podcast called Why Not Futurama. And it is exactly what it sounds like. We are going to review Futurama episode by episode, starting at the very beginning, and we're not going to end until we get done. So it is launched. The first 2 episodes are out there. By the time you hear this, the 3rd episode might be out there too. So yeah, if you love Futurama, or if you've always meant to watch Futurama, there's no better time than now. You can join me and Scotty on Why Not Futurama and watch one of the funniest, most clever, most amazing animated shows ever created. And I'm saying it because I love that show, which is good because I'm going to be reviewing the whole darn thing. So again, Why Not Futurama? You can get that at rf4rm.com, or you can just search for Why Not Futurama wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for those of you who've already checked it out. And for those of you who are waiting, please do check it out. It would mean a lot.
Everybody loves that show. Even my wife loves that show, and my wife doesn't love anything, at least as far as television and media is concerned.
Yeah, I feel like there are 2 kinds of people who love Futurama and people who have not watched Futurama.
That's pretty much accurate. Matter of fact, you pointed out to me that it was on Hulu because I was unaware, so now I'm starting to go through the episodes myself. Thank you for that.
Of course.
My wife comes home from work the other day. I'm watching, I think it was like episode 3, and she's like, "You're just watching this because your friend started that podcast." I'm like, "No, I'm watching this because it was brought to my attention that it was on Hulu." She said, "By your friend who has the podcast?" I said, "Yeah." Then she goes, "And you're watching it because your friend has this podcast." I'm like, "Okay, fair point."
Is that what I'm referred to in the Drooly house as your friend?
I'm not sure I ever mentioned to her that it was specifically you that started it. I just said, "Hey, you got a new show on the network." So,
yeah. Well, yeah. So for those people who are like, "Oh, I want to watch Futurama, but I don't know how." Hey, if you got Hulu, the whole series is on Hulu, so it doesn't even cost you anything. Completely free entertainment.
Hulu is incredible in that I have Futurama, Seinfeld, Dharma and Greg, and what's the other one I'm watching? Oh, Scrubs. All of those. So
yeah,
like
Hulu's
I'm
pretty
alternating
great.
in and out of those, and I love all of them.
No, that's great. And it doesn't sound like you're watching it, but do you know what else is on Hulu? Golden Girls.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. When I get caught up on the other ones, I might tack that one on the back end of it because I actually do like it.
I launched Why Not Futurama, and Brendan immediately was like, "Hey, let's do Golden Girls." And I was like, I could be convinced.
Actually, my wife sent me one the other day since you brought up Golden Girls, and we're completely off the rails here already. I'll just read it to you.
I haven't even finished the intro.
It's a meme of God standing in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. And it says, "Adam, I have made woman from your rib. Her name is Eve." "Okay, but who's that?" And he looks over and it's Betty White. "Oh, that's just Betty White. She was here when I arrived."
Oh, man. I think it was when B. Arthur passed. Which I'm still not over. that one of my friends posted the funniest thing was that, like, you know, it was like somewhere in Burbank, California, Betty White is staring out the window with fire in her eyes and muttering, "There can be only one."
Every time somebody says the name B. Arthur out loud in my mind, Judd Nelson says, "B. Arthur? Outstanding."
Anyway, wow, we have gone off the rails. Anyway, there's no Golden Girls show yet, but Brendan wants me to. In the meantime, there's Why Not Futurama. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for those of you who've checked it out and for sent. I've gotten quite a few very nice notes about the show, and it really means a lot. So I appreciate that. Who am I? I haven't even introduced myself, but if you listen to this show, you probably know who I am. I'm Andy. Hi. If you want to follow me, you can do it on Twitter or on Instagram. It's my name, Andy DeGenova. This episode of Holy BatCast, we are going to be looking back at Season 1 of Swamp Thing on DC Universe, and we're going to review the next episode of Batman Beyond, because we're committed, darn it. And joining me, you already know, you've heard his voice. It's my pal. It is the crusty old Bruce Wayne to my Terry McGinnis. It's Jamie Drewley.
In the spirit of remaining off the rails, bite my shiny metal ass.
I mean, but Bruce is the coolest. So, like, there's that. I mean, he's old, but he's cool.
Yeah, indeed.
So it could be worse.
Yes, it could.
I could have made you the Avery Sunderland to my Swamp Thing.
That guy's a real treat.
He's a right bastard, if I can just get that out of the way from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that's a spoiler. So yeah,
I don't think so either. And you both have that country twang in your voice.
I only get it when I get mad, though.
And you don't call it turtle soup.
No, I've actually never eaten turtle soup.
Anyway, yeah, let's talk about Swamp Thing first. Then we'll get to Batman Beyond. So, without further ado, why don't we look back, now that we have seen the finale, at Season 1 of Swamp Thing on DC Universe. So we did get 10 episodes of Swamp Thing, pared down from the original 13. I'm not bitter. And by saying that, what I mean is I'm completely bitter.
I echo that.
Yeah, we've seen the entire season now. I've rewatched the entire season over this weekend, Jamie.
Spoken like a guy who lives by himself and has no familial commitments to maintain, being some opposite side of the globe area from his family.
You know, silver lining of living in China, I don't have any friends.
I was saying that, and I'm thinking to myself, how do I get on this China program so I can get caught up on some TV and stuff that I'm trying to watch?
I don't hate it. I love my friends. I miss my friends, but I have podcasts, and I've really enjoyed just chilling and catching up on stuff that I always meant to get to, and I'm not mad about it. So
silver lining.
Yeah, it's been great. So yeah, I watched 5 episodes on Saturday and 5 episodes on Sunday. On Sunday, though, I started them first thing in the morning in bed, which means I did not shower until 3:30 in the afternoon. And guess what? I don't feel the least bit guilty.
That's a proper Sunday as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it was great. It was great. Just had my coffee in bed and just kept watching Swamp Thing. Best day of my life, Jamie, ever.
I can't even contest you. I'm living vicariously through you hearing that story.
Anyway, let's start spoiler-free for all of our friends at home who have not gotten a chance to catch up or who have not watched the finale yet. We'll give some spoiler-free thoughts. Then I will give a spoiler warning because I care. And then we're going to talk about everything, including the delicious turtle soup. So,
there are some savages out there that haven't even started the series yet. Looking at you, Justin Lee.
What?
Yeah.
What? Okay. Justin, if you're listening, turn it off. You don't even get to listen to this episode. Go do your homework. Go to your room. We don't need you. We don't need you.
He doesn't even have the international unavailability excuse. Unless Tennessee is not part of the union anymore, and I'm unaware of it. But.
That's true. For our overseas friends, like, okay, valid excuse. Justin, just laziness, just lack of commitment. Anyway, spoiler free, Jamie. We've seen season 1. Might be the only season. I want to hear your overall thoughts.
I'm going to get it out of the way now because I don't want to spend the whole episode just coming back to it and say I'm really heartbroken that at this moment it doesn't look like we're getting any more for the foreseeable future.
Amen. I'm right there with you.
But I don't want to dwell on the negative because I think we got a really high quality show here. I think there was a lot to love about this show, and I think there was very little not to love about this show. That said, and again, I don't want to spend the whole episode dwelling on this either. I think of all of the original programming for DC Universe so far, this may be my least favorite, but that's not to say that it's not great because I really love the other stuff, particularly Doom Patrol and Young Justice. So, I mean, that's not exactly a fair thing to just say, yeah, Swamp Thing's my least favorite thing on the DC Universe app because I love the other stuff so much and I had more investment in the other characters and just the overall presentation of it. And again, that's not saying I didn't find this to be a quality show and I didn't love it because I did, but this one, I don't know. I think I might have been a little off balance with it because of having that news of things getting cut short and then even getting cut shorter over and above that a few weeks later. So I think in the back of my mind that was always there.
Yeah, you got that baggage since we found out it was canceled after the first episode. So yeah, well, every episode you watch, you can't help but think of it.
The first announcement came that they cut 3 episodes off of it. And you're like, okay, well, it's a 10 instead of a 13 now. And then a matter of weeks later, 2-3 weeks, whatever it was, you found out, yeah, the show's done after this season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was, I guess, heavy-hearted, for lack of a better thing to call it, going into the show because of that. I mean, we were into the first episode, if that, when the news came out. My timeline's kind of messed up with it now.
It was. I feel like it was right after we saw the first episode because we reviewed the first episode on this show.
That's right.
And we hadn't known that it was quote unquote canceled yet, and so we didn't discuss it at all. And then we found out like a few days later, and then I think it was Brendan and I addressed it once I finally got to China and I could podcast again. So yeah, I swear it came out after the pilot.
I think that's right. I think you're right.
But you're right. It made for a very bittersweet viewing experience because we're watching it and we're loving it and we're going, but this is all we're getting.
Yeah, it just kind of takes the wind out of your sails with it because if we had all came into this show knowing, hey, this is a 10-episode miniseries, this is all we're going to get, and then maybe they leave a back door open at the end of it in case they wanted to do more later, fine. Yeah, I think that would have changed everybody's perspective about this show overall. I know it would have changed mine.
Oh, totally.
But, instead we had to go back and forth for weeks and much like other things that we've seen floating out there in the geek community, now every time I turn around on Twitter, I see hashtags and stuff for, Save Swamp Thing. And that's great, and I hope it somehow happens, but it sours you somehow. And again, I'm not sour toward the show itself. I just feel like I got punched in the gut kind of watching it. Mm-hmm. Every week I kept thinking to myself, I'm really mad that I know we're not going to get any more of this when these 10 are done, at least in theory. I mean, there's of course been murmurs of HBO getting it or somehow or another. I mean, I've even heard CW getting it, but I can't even begin to imagine CW getting a hold of this, and unless it's like some app exclusive where they can maintain the mature content levels and tones and stuff like that. But even then, this thing is a budget killer, and CW shows aren't really heavy on budget anyway. So I don't know that that's the solution I'd want. I think I'd probably, no disrespect to the CW shows, I think I'd rather Swamp Thing just stay where it's at instead of making that transition. The HBO thing appeals to me, of course, and who knows what's going to happen, this back and forth, DC Universe sticking around, HBO getting some of the exclusive content. I mean, who knows what's going to happen to that. But
Right.
I'm rambling now. At any rate, the show itself, I think Swamp Thing himself, first and foremost, I think he looks great, sounds great, acts great. I love everything about the character of Swamp Thing himself. I love the voice. I love the fact that they maintain so much practical with him in today's day and age, I think is really commendable. Derek Mears is like a physical presence in that role, and he looks intimidating, which to me, a character like Swamp Thing should be very intimidating. So I really appreciated the aesthetics with him. I think the character work in the show was very solid, which of course is always important for me. I think Abby was a great character. I enjoyed the chemistry between her and Alec, kind of before and after Swamp Thing both. Avery, I've seen Will Patton take some crap for Avery with, accent and mustache twisting and everything else. But you know what? I really enjoyed Avery Sunderland in the show for how he was presented. I think he was a very good character. I think Virginia Madsen's character playing his wife, I think, was a really good character too. The psychological issues she was dealing with for what she was dealing with them for, I think were really well done. Ian Ziering, I would have loved to have seen more of him. I think I don't know that I've ever seen him better in a role. And this is from a guy who behind closed doors, excuse me, watched 90210 for at least the last few seasons with a friend of his who wouldn't openly admit to it either. And I'm a fan of the Sharknado movies. I know what they are. They're not good movies, but I find extreme entertainment value with them. And of course, he's been in all of those. So I kind of have an affinity for him for those two things anyway. But again, I don't know that I've ever seen him better than what he was in the series. The sheriff, whose name escapes me, was played by Jennifer Beals. I thought she was an interesting character. I would have liked to actually seen a little bit more from her development wise. Not to say that she was like underdeveloped necessarily, but when they give me a character that I want more from in the perspective of I like them so well that I want more of them versus I think they were shortchanged and I wanted to know them better. That's kind of where I'm at with her. So there's so many things about the show that I love. The way it embraced the horror elements, I guess we should have expected that with James Wan being attached, of course. Mm-hmm. But I never expected it was going to be to the levels that they got with. I mean, in particular, and hopefully this isn't crossing a spoiler line, but in particular, the episode that really dealt with the rot pretty heavily. Mm-hmm. Wow, that was some creeped out stuff.
Oh, man. And you're right. Like, we talked about that a little bit when the show was announced, when we knew that James Wan was executive producing it and helping develop it. And we all went, oh, wow, like, I wonder how much horror will be in it. And, I mean, this is a horror DC show. It really is. When I was watching it and when I was rewatching it, what really stood out to me is I was like, if I were to make a comparison as far as what the tone is with another TV show, it's like American Horror Story. It's maybe a little less camp than you get on American Horror Story, but as far as like every episode having something truly scary and some really scary sequences, Swamp Thing is that. It's just through the DC universe that you're getting it. But I mean, there are a lot of really horrifying and gnarly and truly scary sequences, moments, scenes, visuals throughout the entire 10 episodes. And I was really impressed with how they embraced the horror aspect of it, because I thought they did it really well.
Absolutely. At this point, we all know, watch the show or not, that, they originally had 13 episodes, as we mentioned earlier, numerous times, and they were, given the order to cut it down to 10. So they essentially had to redo the 10th episode of the series to make it a finale instead of being able to carry out some through lines that they had rolling there. There was a lot of apprehension about that, myself included, that they were going to be able to do that effectively. And although you can certainly see some plot points that happened in that final episode that probably deserved a little bit more attention, for the nicest way I can phrase it, I really think they did an admirable job of closing things out well enough with the episode. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And I'm going to pine for more until I know there's no chance it's ever going to happen, and even then I probably will. But anyway, that 10th episode I thought gave enough closure and was wrapped up well enough that respectable, beyond and a step over respectable yet. Pretty impressive, in fact, given what they were working with.
Yeah, I agree with you. We won't discuss details just yet, but I agree that for having to tie up as many loose ends as possible in that 10th episode, I think they did it very well. I think they did it as well as they possibly could. So yeah, I mean, yes, some of those threads got pushed to their ending point probably quicker than they would have otherwise, but it didn't feel... To me, it didn't feel unnatural. It didn't feel too forced. I didn't see the seams showing. I just went, oh, wow, okay, so, we're here now. We've gotten to this point. But no, I think for turning that last episode into a finale and not having the 3 extra hours to wrap things up, I think they did it very well.
Agreed.
I was impressed.
And of course, it came out this week from a producer or showrunner or somebody that, hey, you'll want to stick around after the credits for that final episode, which we'll obviously discuss the details when we get there. But for those who haven't seen it, I'm 95% positive that was something that was going to happen in the final 3 episodes that were chopped off the end, that they'd already filmed, and they just decided to put that in there for their little stinger. And trust me when I say I really want those other 3 episodes back now. And it's certainly going to make you want the series to continue in some fashion or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for those of us who, caught that and were hoping for some kind of an announcement that there was going to be a season 2, I'll just spoil that for you right now. That's not what we got.
Right.
But doors are open. I'll leave it at that until we get into the spoiler territory.
No, they absolutely, they wrapped up as much as they could, but they left enough open that they could keep going if they get saved, which, you're right, has not happened yet. We all, we hoped for it at Comic-Con when they announced renewing Doom Patrol and Young Justice, and we hoped maybe they were saving it for this post-credits scene, which is not what the scene was. But yeah, still no news on that front, but... Yes, there's enough that they could keep pushing forward after the finale that they're easily set up for another season.
I still don't believe we've gotten the entire story on why this thing was abruptly shut down either.
Well, that's because we haven't gotten any story.
We've got like 7 stories out there, and I think it might be a mix of the 7 stories that we got that's caused it, but I think there's more to this than anybody's ever going to publicly come out and say without violating some kind of an NDA or something.
Well, that's true. We have so many versions of what could have been the reason, but none of it has been confirmed. And none of it, all of it has been debunked in one way or another. So we have no idea what happened. We have it just doesn't make any sense, especially because they renewed the other shows. And yeah, it's baffling to me. But none of it adds up.
Nope, it sure doesn't.
Spoiler free, my thoughts. I loved season 1. Maybe season only, but season 1 for now. I loved it. I had a great time going on the ride, and I would have loved to get 13 full episodes. It sucks, and then I still hoped for a season 2, but for what we got, it was great. It's a great show. I have a hard time picking my favorites of the DC Universe originals because I've loved every one of them. I've loved all that we've gotten so far. I love Titans, I love Doom Patrol, I love Young Justice, and I've loved Swamp Thing. So I'm not even going to rank them because I've enjoyed them all on their own terms. And Swamp Thing is just another winner from DC Universe, which makes it all the more heartbreaking that it might be a one-off. As you said, the characters and the cast are outstanding in the show. I loved every single one of them, I think. Every character I really liked and I really enjoyed, and I think that the cast did a great job bringing them all to life. So that is a huge win. What you said about Will Patton, I thought he was great. I did. Was he a little hammy? I guess, but for me it worked. And again, he was such a great son of a bitch that for me, he was a really good villain because, man, I hated him, and I really was rooting against him the whole time. So a huge, huge kudos to Will Patton for doing that. No, the cast overall was amazing. Swamp Thing was as perfect as you could want. His appearance, his performance, his voice, everything. Like, Swamp Thing is the star of the show. And although he doesn't have as much screen time as Abby or probably even Avery Sunderland, when Swamp Thing is on screen, it matters. And he's great. I couldn't ask for a more perfect live action Swamp Thing. Crystal Reed as Abby Arcane, she carries the show, and she's terrific. And I loved every minute of her. And again, it was quite a fun switch because I went from hating her on Gotham, because I was supposed to hate her on Gotham, to immediately being on her side and really loving her as the lead of this show. The cast overall was terrific. I agree with everyone that you said. I want to give a special shout out to, I'm looking at the actress's name because I don't know it, but the character of Liz. Because
is that
Liz,
the reporter friend?
Yes. So
she
it was like
great too.
Abby's reporter friend from Murray, and I'd never heard of Liz Tremaine. I don't know who that is. Like, is she in the comics? Maybe, but not that I know of. I'm not a Swamp Thing expert. But for being a less flashy role, she doesn't get to have superpowers. She doesn't get to be the lead. She's the reporter friend. Man, she's great. Like, she's so good in this. And I didn't expect to like her as much as I did. I didn't expect to dislike her, but I just was like, oh, who's this character? And she really, I think did amazingly. And I really loved her throughout the season. Madame Xanadu, I thought was awesome. She also just kind of popped up here and there, but I think she was really great. Kevin Durand, I think, was fascinating and really fun to watch as Jason Woodrue.
I would have to think on it, but I may also go ahead and give the best performance of career to him as well. Because I've seen him in a number of things. He pops up periodically in movies and generally not in like huge roles. Like, we know Blob in the X-Men Origins Wolverine. He was in Real Steel for a brief amount of time.
Yeah, Lost.
I mean, you keep saying Lost. Honestly, I've seen all of Lost, but it's been years since I've watched it. I can't even remember him being in Lost.
Well, there were a lot of people who kept popping up on that island. So he wasn't on for like 5 seasons. I want to say it was a season maybe that he was on.
That's another show I should get back around to rewatching, but too much other content right now. But anyway, I think he did a very, very good job with this role in this part.
Oh, yeah. And he created such a unique character, with his voice and everything. And to really watch his descent into madness, shall we say, was fascinating. So, no, overall, the cast, I think, was amazing. Virginia Madsen, I've always loved her. Ever since Highlander 2, I've loved Virginia Madsen.
I go back as far as
Candyman.
Candyman. Yep.
Candyman, yep, I love her. And I think she's great in this. Jennifer Beals, I don't know what she's been doing with her time, but she's great in this show. Every character was
Jennifer
great.
Beals is on that Keanu Reeves plan where she quit aging like 15, 20 years ago.
Right? She is gorgeous.
She's got to be, and I'm stabbing here, but she's got to be in her mid-50s.
She is. I looked it up because I was so curious. She's 56.
Look, red-blooded heterosexual male sticking his head out here for a second. I'm impressed. Okay, that's all. I can say.
Amazing. Like I said, I've said it before. I don't know who aged better, her or Ian Ziering, because they're both the same age and they both look amazing.
Or Elizabeth Shue if you're watching The Boys, which you should be because it's amazing.
That's on my to-do list. I had to rewatch all of Swamp Thing first. But no, this cast is terrific. And I think what I love about it and the character work is that, like, the show is called Swamp Thing. We want to see Swamp Thing. I never notice when Swamp Thing's not on screen because I'm so invested in everything else that's going on. And that's the best compliment I can pay it.
I certainly co-sign that all day.
So they did such a great job of creating so many interesting characters, casting it amazingly with really great actors, making these stories super fascinating. And if Swamp Thing's not hanging around, I just go, I don't even notice. It's just that good. As we said, the horror elements, I loved. You and I are horror guys, so we love the horror. And there were parts of this, and I love horror. I have a pretty high tolerance, I'd say. Oh man, there were parts that really made me cringe or audibly scream. You mentioned, I think you're referring to episode 4. Episode 4, I did scream. alone in my living room, I screamed. And then I rewatched it yesterday and I screamed again. It is, oh my God. I can't, but I loved it, but I can't. It's crazy. So I loved the horror elements. I loved the superhero elements. I could use a little more superhero action. If I've got a nitpick, that's one of them. And that you get plenty of it, but like, I felt like it was always cut just a little short, and I'm sure that's probably budgetary, but you know, I could have used a little more Swamp Thing whomping ass out in the swamp, but I feel like they tried to make up for that in the finale.
Okay. That's the one nitpick I've got about the show, but we're going to have to circle back around to it because I can't talk about it without ruining something. So when we get over the wall, remind me and we'll jump straight to that because, you know how I work. But
yes. So I have that little nitpick, but again, it's pretty little because I still think there's some pretty badass moments throughout. And huge kudos for whoever's decision. It was probably James Wan's decision. Do you know why? Because James Wan is the best. Whoever decided was like, hey, if we're doing Swamp Thing, we should also bring in Blue Devil. Whoever made that decision, whoever you are, please come visit me in Beijing. I will buy you dinner. I will buy you drinks. I will make sure you leave the evening satisfied. I will do whatever it takes.
He'll bury your first child if you want.
I will. Whatever you want. Beijing is your oyster, and let me be your guide. Because thank you for giving me my first live-action Blue Devil. Thank you for including him in this show. It's wonderful. And then casting someone like Ian Ziering, who I've always liked. And you're right, he's great in this show. The character work that he does as Daniel Cassidy is really strong here. And I want to get into that in spoilers. I don't think it's very spoilery just to say Daniel Cassidy's a great character. And I love how he is frustrated and he's a little bitter, but he's still always a good guy. And I really like that about him. Is like, even though he was kind of bitter about his life, he always did the right thing anyway. And I just thought that was cool that like the decency in him was so strong that like it sort of overcame his own personal frustrations throughout, multiple times. I'd
really like to patronize his video shop as well.
Me too. I want to live in that video store. This is amazing. There
was a couple of Blue Devil moments. Okay, I'll just say this now. This isn't really spoilery, but there were a few times where I kept thinking to myself, they're going to cut Blue Devil out of the show, and Andy's never going to get it, and I'm going to feel so bad for him. So in that moment when he actually does show up, I was like, oh yeah. And then there was also another moment. I think it actually might have been the last episode. I don't know. Things run together for me after a matter of hours anymore because I'm old and degenerative. Where Liz is on like an iPad and the cover of Blue Devil #1 is on the iPad that she's looking at. And I'm like, oh, Andy just had a geekgasm over that.
Yep. That was episode 10. That was the finale. But yes, she actually looked at Blue Devil #1, and then when you go back to the video store, all the Blue Devil comics are kind of scattered around the floor.
Sure.
So I do love that, like, in this world, Blue Devil was a comic book that got turned into a movie and then becomes real.
That's
kind of awesome.
Meta, I guess you would call that.
Yeah. So no, I was very happy with Blue Devil, but of course, am I disappointed we did not get more? Yes, I am. But I know a few people were like, oh God, if they cut this out because the episode order got cut short, Andy will be inconsolable. For a good, at least the back half of the season, I kept thinking to myself, he's going to be the casualty of that 3-episode loss. Yeah. And I think that we didn't get more because of that. Because he doesn't go full Blue Devil until episode 9. And so I think that we would have gotten more in episodes 10, 11, 12 before they wrap up his story in 13, which they had to rush to in 10 here. Mm-hmm. So yes, like I was very happy with it, but yeah, I think that more Blue Devil was one of the casualties of getting the episode order cut short. Because they really built to it. But I also thought that like they can't cut it completely because there was too much buildup that was in it. You know, like I feel like they couldn't really cut him completely. But anyway, we can get to that in spoilers, but I'm just so happy that he was in it. I think he looked great. I was very, and I think Ian Ziering was really terrific as Daniel Cassidy. Overall, I love the show. I have a lot of great things to say about it. The other thing, though, that, you know, I have two big nitpicks. One is what I said about maybe just a little more action. Because we love this stuff for the stories and the mythology and the world building and the characters, and we love all that. But we still like to see some superhero throwdown. We still like to see that. And I don't think it's bad to want that. And so I could have used a little more of that, which I think was the same thing I said about Doom Patrol. I adored Doom Patrol, but yeah, a little more super heroics I think could have been good. And then my other complaint, and I think people will probably go, oh, well, it's because their episode order got short, but I'm not convinced that's true, is there were story points and characters that did get abandoned as the show went on without real resolution. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about stuff that probably got cut short because of episode 10. I'm talking about stuff that like just disappeared in episode 5. And I went, what happened with that? And I'll tell you what that stuff is when we get into spoilers. So there was a little bit of that went on, where I went, when I was rewatching it, I went, oh my God, I forgot all about this, because they just stopped mentioning it around episode 4 or 5 and they never went back to it. And if the show continues, it's something you can always pick up in future seasons. But if this is all we get, there are just a few threads that they just left hanging with no resolution. So I think there was a little issue with that. But overall, I loved the first season. I loved the journey. I loved how different Titans is from Doom Patrol, and then how different Swamp Thing is from Titans and Doom Patrol. I like that all three of them, they're all here, you know, part of this world, part of this universe, but they all have a very distinctive voice. And I appreciated that too. Swamp Thing was very much its own thing, and it was something I totally enjoyed. So yeah, I loved the ride, and like you and like many fans out there, I hope this is not the end of the ride. But as far as that goes, we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. I think that the news of its premature cancellation, I think that did dissuade some people from watching it, which is a shame. That sucks. Because I was even talking to my sister yesterday, and she goes, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm watching Swamp Thing. And she went, didn't that get canceled? And I'm like, yeah, but the whole season's still on the app. And she goes, oh, is it? Like, she thought it just got killed. So like for people not like us who are maybe a little more casual, like they just heard it was canceled, and so they didn't even seek it out, which is a real shame, because this show deserves to be seen, especially if you're a DC fan, especially if you love these characters, especially if you loved Blue Devil. You should definitely watch this. And if you do love Blue Devil like I do, drop me a line. Let's hang out. Let's be friends.
Right on. I did happen to notice when I was at Target a couple of weeks ago that Titans is out on Blu-ray now.
Yeah.
So
it's on iTunes as well.
I'm curious to see whether or not Swamp Thing picks up a little bit of a cult following, if you will, once that hits another digital medium.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so too. Again, I want more people to experience this, and if it's all we get, it sucks, but it also is, I mean, it's still 10 hours of really quality Swamp Thing storytelling, and I'm not mad at that. But as you said, if it had been planned that way, it would have been very different than what we got, because as you watch it, you can tell they're not writing it for a miniseries. They're writing it for ongoing.
Right. There are two like big time Swamp Thing fans that I know through social media, and both were really impressed by the show. Obviously, both had vented the disappointments about, you know, being shortchanged or, you know, canceled, what have you, but both of them seemed very satisfied with the product that we got in the 10 episodes we did.
Yeah. Our, my friend Robert Reinecke, who he's been on this show, and he has his own podcast. It's called Swamp Things. So free plug for you, Robert. Do you know why? Because you've never asked me to. And that's why I'll do it. Robert's a huge Swamp Thing fan, so much that he's committing a lot of his time to his own podcast about it. And he was really happy with it, too. He did say that he didn't think Avery was a great villain, but I will respectfully disagree with him, because I thought Avery was a great villain, because I effing hated the bastard. So, And
it's amazing how
especially in the
gauge.
final. Yeah, especially in the final 2 episodes. Oh man, I wanted to beat the crap out of this guy. I guess there are other points throughout the entire season, but oh man, he is a dick. Okay, so that being said, it's a great show. Me and Jamie both really loved it. There are nits to pick, but overall, I think it was really great. And where it left us leaves a lot of places to go. And maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. But in the meantime, we always have this, which is not nothing. So we are going to get into spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled for Swamp Thing Season 1, this would be the time to pause and go watch the show. Enjoy the ride. I think you will have a great time with it. Like the other DC Universe live action content, it is R-rated, so just be aware. Like we said, some of those horror elements are gnarly, but it's a good watch. But now we are going to talk spoilers, so you've been warned. Jamie, there was something you wanted to get into spoilery right away, so I'm going to let you do it.
This is kind of my nitpick, and I know this is being nitpicky, and I'm fully aware of it, and I own it right now before I even get to mentioning, but I believe it was episode 8. Episode 9 was Anatomy Lesson, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes, so episode 8 would have been the episode where they had the mercenaries out there capturing him with the... was it nitrogen or
whatever? Where eventually they froze him?
Yeah. Yeah, they froze him, and that's how they were able to get him into that lab, and Woodrue was able to start cutting into him. So you have this moment where Swamp Thing is kind of circled by a group of mercenaries and, puts up a good fight, takes a guy or two with him here and there, but, eventually he drops down and is frozen and is captured.
Yeah.
Then episode 10, they've got a group of mercenaries going through the swamp, kind of encircling him. And it's not the exact same approach, but I just kind of had the same feel between those two sequences. And in the back of my mind, I was going, I wish this was something else that they were giving me for what I expected was going to be the last big action sequence of the show. Mm-hmm. Because it felt too much like the episode 2 before it, where group of mercenaries armed to the teeth out there trying to, catch or kill the swamp monster. It just felt too similar to me. And I'm not saying that they both weren't quality sequences, because they were, especially I think it was Shaw was the mercenary leader in the last episode, the way he bought
Busey.
It. Yeah.
Is Jake Busey, who always plays the a-hole. Yeah,
indeed he does. I actually really like him as an actor.
He's really good. But he was just in Stranger Things being an a-hole, and now he pops up in the last episode of Swamp Thing being an a-hole. He's just good at it.
The only time I could think of where he didn't play an a-hole, he still semi-played an a-hole, was in Starship Troopers. But anyway.
Oh yeah, and he worked for that a-hole Jonas with the evil Storm Chasers. In Twister.
That's right.
In Twister, yeah. He was part of the evil Storm Chaser crew. So F that guy. I take back what I said. F him.
I'm with you.
They stole Billy's design, okay, for Dorothy. And I'm not over it.
But anyway,
I'm done.
The way he got his with, the bottom portion of the jaw being ripped off and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I love crazy violent kills like that. Just entertain the heck out of me, because I find them absolutely amusing. But anyway.
Oh, and this show had a few.
Oh, it sure did. The first one goes all the way back to episode 2 or 3, where that guy's chasing after Abby. Or no, not Abby. It was the little
Susie.
girl, wasn't it?
Yeah, little girl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he rips that guy in like 5
He does.
pieces.
He draws and quarters the guy with the vines and just, lets out that primal yell and rips him, violent pieces. That was the moment where I knew the show was really going to be something.
Oh, totally. Exactly. I think that was a moment where I screamed, but like a happy scream as opposed to like a terrified scream. Because I wasn't expecting it to be that gruesome, and I went, "Whoa!" And there were a few. The other time was when Jake Busey bought it.
Yeah. My son is also amused by stuff like that. He and I just went and saw Crawl and had a few good laughs out of that. He has the entertainment wiring in his brain to see that sort of thing, and he gets laughs out of it. He does. My daughters see that sort of thing, and it like terrifies them. Like if my daughters watch that scene, they probably wouldn't sleep for weeks. My son watches it, he thinks it's funny. So he's got the same wiring I do. So that scene happens where he draws and quarters him with the vines. My son was playing Beyblades in the other room. it happened, and I paused and rewound it, and I yelled for him to come into the room and watch it, and I rewound it and hit play, and he's like, "Oh!" and he started laughing at it. So I'm like, "Yeah, this is." He actually started watching the show with me from that point on because that got his attention. So
that was the GIF I shared when I tweeted that we were recording this episode. So I found a GIF of that dude getting torn in 5 places.
excellent.
Yeah. So I understand your point about like the group of whatever mercenaries taking on Swamp Thing. But the counterpoint I will give you is I understand your point is it happens 3 times in the season. And the first time it's just 2 of these master hunters going after Swamp Thing, and they get their asses kicked by Swamp Thing because he does that thing where he slaps the trees and it sends all of these like slivers at them. And they both get covered in these slivers, and so they were no match for him. So when they bring the mercenaries back the second time, and they have a much bigger crew, they're much more prepared, and that's where they do get the better of Swampy, and they freeze him. So I feel like in the finale, when they come back to kill him, because at this point he's too dangerous to be left alive, to me it felt like a rematch. Where it was
that's fair. I had the same sort of thing going through my head because in the first one, it took him a minute to get his bearings with it. And the second one, he was kind of off balance through the whole thing. And the third one, he was in complete control from start to finish.
Right.
So
exactly.
I get what you're saying. I just, again, would have liked something else be the last real thing that we see with Swamp Thing as far as an action sequence.
No. Yeah,
I know I'm being nitpicky. I know it's a nitpick, but I'm just saying that my preference would have been, I mean, we're over the wall, so this is your own fault if you didn't catch that. I would have rather had a very brief showdown with Woodrue, a.k.a. Floronic Man at that point.
Yeah.
Than another battle with mercenaries there.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't
I get that.
I would have rather seen something like that.
I thought that's where we were going. But and to your point, if they'd gone 13 episodes, maybe it is where we would have gotten. Who knows? But yeah, I did think that's where we were going. I did love like all the promotion coming up to the finale was Swamp Thing fights back, which I thought was great. So I knew that they were at least planning something. And so yeah, I mean, I did like that by that point he was fully in control. He was prepared. They beat him once, but he learned, and they're not going to beat him on his own turf again. And so could there have been something a little different, a new twist on it? Sure. But I also did enjoy just watching him lay waste to all these mercenaries. And I love that he went into battle mode.
Yes.
Where the spikes came out of his shoulders. And I was like, I didn't expect that. That's pretty badass.
That was great. I did love that quite a bit.
Yeah. So that was rad. But yeah, so, point taken. Getting to my nitpick about, I think I was pretty clear about just a little more action. I don't have much more to go into on that, except going with the Blue Devil. We only get real Blue Devil for one scene, and I like it. I love it. It's great, but it would have been great as the first introductory scene if there was going to be more. But because there was only that scene, I wish that had been a little more intricate. We'd have gotten more of him kicking ass, because as it was staged, we only saw him in glimpses. And then you get a full reveal for a quick second as he opens the door for Abby and Liz. But again, that would have been perfect if he was going to pop up a couple more times. But because we only got that one, I wish there had been more there. I really wanted to see him and Swamp Thing team up and take out some bad guys together. That would have been
watching
glorious.
the two of them go back to back in a battle would have been fantastic.
Right? Oh man, it would have been so good. Anyway, my point was, is my other nitpick was that there were just certain stories and characters that just get abandoned. So we mentioned the little girl, Susie. Susie is like super important in episodes 1 through 5. So important.
Vanishes.
And then she disappears. Disappears. And there's a line of dialogue where Abby goes, "Oh, I was making sure Susie was safe with her family." But for a character that was that important for 5 episodes, you should have showed us Abby saying goodbye and saying, "You'll be safe now," or whatever. Because having one throwaway line of dialogue, I missed it the first time. And so, yeah, she just disappears. And I was like, what the hell happened to her? Liz's girlfriend just vanishes. Do you remember her?
Yeah. She was way
important
back
for
in
an
episode 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, she was in episode 2 or 3, and I was like, oh, cool, okay. And it's not like she was going to be super important, but still, she had dialogue. She went out, like, exploring the swamp. She found the piece of Alec Holland's boat, and I was like, oh, okay, so, like, and then that was the last you ever see of her. She finds the piece of Alec Holland's boat. She's never mentioned again. She just disappears. And I was like, oh, did she get killed and I forgot? No, she just into thin air.
I was waiting for the Ben Gardner scene to happen with that, by the way.
Oh, okay. Nice.
That was kind of the mode that I felt as it was happening. And, you know, Juan has a tendency once in a while of like doing something like that where it's, I guess, a homage for lack of something.
A direct homage, yeah.
Yeah. But I
like
mean,
we talked about The Thing from episode 1.
Right. So I felt like that's what was going to happen. That's not really what did happen. Just anyway, not important.
Yeah, she just disappears. Did you notice the nod to John Carpenter's Halloween in the finale?
If I did, it was subconscious because I'm not registering what you're talking about.
Okay, so it's a scene I want to talk about anyway, but I need to finish my other thought first. But okay, I'll remind you. Think about it. But there's a John Carpenter scene in the finale. Anyway, I want to know what happened to Harland. I am not going to sleep until I know what happened to Harland. Harland was her best friend from the CDC, the Asian man.
Oh, the one that just
so
kind
nice.
of vanished, like Adrienne Barbeau, like sent him away or something.
I'm so upset because he was so nice. I loved the character. I thought he was great. They had this amazing scene between him and Abby where she finally confides in him and lets him know what the heck has been going on, why she went radio silent. And it's like this great friendship scene. We love him. He's a great guy. He's leaving her apartment and he gets abducted by these two jerks who are working with, oh God, what the hell was his name? Nathan Ellery. They're working with Nathan Ellery. These two guys grab him, throw him in the back of a truck, and then they say, oh, he's been reassigned. Which obviously he's not been reassigned because when Abby calls him, he would eventually call her back. So what the hell happened to Harland? Please tell me he's okay.
That's a very valid point because honestly, in the last couple episodes, I completely forgot he even existed.
Well, he's in the very beginning because he comes with her, he gets sick, he gets better, and then he goes back to Atlanta. And then he shows back up in like episode 7 or 8, where in the episode with Adrienne Barbeau, when she goes back to the CDC and he's like, what the hell happened to you? We haven't heard from you. And so again, like he's brought back in at that point, but then he gets abducted and you never find out what happened to him. And I'm not okay with it.
Great legacy casting on the Adrienne Barbeau thing, by the way.
Oh, I love that they brought her in. She was great. She just had the one episode as well, but yeah, I thought that was great too. But yeah, I'm upset about Harland. The first episode of the season, the danger in the swamp is the sickness, which they spend plenty of time with the sickness and they cure it and cool. But the opening to the entire show is the swamp is alive and it kills those 3 guys, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just kind of abandoned that.
Well, other than, you know, the final thing that you really get with Avery.
But I felt like that was the sickness. Like, I feel like Avery came down with the sickness, right?
Yeah, right.
But I meant like that the swamp came alive and tore those men apart and went into the boat and everything. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then it happens in the first episode. The swamp is essentially alive and attacking people. And then, like, that kind of goes away.
Well, I mean, you could make the case for that kind of going into Alec, I suppose. Maybe, kind of.
The best I could come up with, the best I could come up with as watching it was that it only does that when it's under attack. So those 3 guys in the boat were like dumping, and that's why the swamp killed them. And once Swamp Thing is created, there aren't really any overt attacks against the swamp, so maybe that's why it stops.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Because the flashback with Avery's father, the swamp kills him because he's chopping into that tree. So I'm like, maybe that is it. Like, if you're overtly attacking the swamp, then it will fight back. Just like that was the solution to the disease, was that like, oh, you try to fight it, it's going to fight back. You have to not fight it, and then it will, you'll be okay. So
I
maybe
feel like,
it's
I feel
also
like
that
he mentions
way.
at least once, maybe even twice, that he's, in not so many words, the defender of the green.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he
Or
always
am I
talks about
just-
being part of the green. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, I think you're right.
Maybe
He
I'm laying that over from
acknowledges.
or something.
He acknowledges that he protects it, right? I think so.
I feel like he did, yes.
Yeah. So
So
anyway,
that's
it was
why
just
I'm thinking
something
maybe
where
instead of the swamp being the attacker, it's him that's doing the defending at that point. I don't know.
yeah, it was just something where I was like, wow, this was like a huge deal in the pilot, and it just sort of gets forgotten about. We don't find out what kills Shauna. That's like, we find out what happened, but we don't find, all she said something was there, something drug her away, but we never find out what that thing was. So again, unanswered questions that they didn't get around to. So they wrapped up a lot of threads, but they just weren't able to wrap up every thread. Some of it, I think, was because the episode order was cut short, but some of it, like the Susie thing, like there's really no reason for her to just, I mean, her story's done, great, but at least let us know it's done instead of her just disappearing. So anyway, it was just things like that I noticed rewatching it back to back to back, as opposed to one, because I didn't really notice that as I was watching it week to week, because those things would just I would just forget about them. So anyway, that was just something I noticed as well. Back to the John Carpenter Halloween moment in the finale.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the moment where Lucilia, who is Jennifer Beals' sheriff, she gets in her car and it's all steamed up.
Oh,
and
yes.
And she wipes her finger on the windshield, seeing that the steam was on the inside of the car.
I can't believe I didn't place that.
Yeah, which is very, of course, reminiscent from John Carpenter's Halloween, when Linda does the same.
Good
so,
call.
Totally. But that scene, oh my God, okay, oh my God, it disturbed me. Because, okay, Lucilia, her hands were dirty, sure. But I still liked her. And I wish her and Maria's evil plot to take out Avery would have worked, because I love the two of them teaming up. I love both of them. I hated Avery. I wanted them to succeed so badly. They didn't succeed, and it makes me so mad that Avery gets the better of both of them. Because that scene where he stabs her through the seat, and then she goes for her gun, and the way he just kind of slowly grabs that gun out of her hand, and then she tries to beep the horn, and then he holds down her hand, keeps her from beeping the horn. It's like in real time, and you're just watching all of the hope just disappear of her getting out of this. And it was for me, it was so painful to watch.
And then on top of all that, getting the locked in the trunk water treatment after all said and done.
Oh man, it was brutal. It was so brutal. And that's where I was like, I hate you, Avery. I hate you so much. Flames out of the side of my head. Flames.
I'm going to rear my semi-racist side here for just a second. Did you look at her son and think that he was like black or mixed?
Yes.
Because I did, because it never made sense to me. He's
at least mixed.
Yeah, I looking at Avery and her, I never quite saw how he comes from that. So, I mean, that part never quite registered with me.
I think that's fair. I thought that as well. I was like, I don't think those two white people create a black son. But I know that Jennifer Beals has a darker complexion, but I don't think she's African American.
If she is, it's news to me. Of course,
No,
I looked at Rashida. I still look at Rashida Jones thinking, really? Okay.
Yeah, no, I know. That completely is crazy to me. So no, that's not racist. That's just biology. I loved the actor, but yeah, I was like, I don't know how you two make him, but I just got to go with it.
Yeah. Just something I needed to get out,
fair.
I guess.
That's fair. So no, I know like Lucilia made some bad judgment calls throughout the season. I get it.
Well, I mean, going all the way back to
liked
getting
her.
involved with Avery in the first place, the judgment
That's
wasn't
true.
exactly clear. So,
That's true. How I mean,
but
she was
I'm like you. I love the fact that they brought that twist that she and Virginia Madsen were in cahoots.
yeah.
And
yeah.
There was a moment there where I actually thought that the twist was going to be that Virginia Madsen was going to wind up being the big villain because she was, courting the guy from the company that Avery was supposed to be meeting with. Ellery, was that his name?
Yeah.
Okay. So she's trying to get Ellery to come with her and, Woodrue and all these other people. She's basically telling them, you answer to me now. And then you find out that
Lucilia.
Yeah, her.
It's an interesting name. You don't hear it a lot.
Is involved with it. So I'm thinking to myself, you think that she's going to be the henchman for Avery, but if she winds up killing Avery, you think she's free of Avery, and then find out that she's really working for Virginia Madsen. That whole twist to me just kind of like, it just really lit me up on the inside. I really liked it a lot. So I, like you, all due respect to Will Patton, because I really did like Avery or hate him, however you want to view that.
Exactly.
I thought he was really great. I was really hoping that he was done and it was going to be the two of them, running it from then on.
No, I wondered about that too. I did wonder because I loved the way she took control. It was unexpected in a really great way because she had been so I don't know what's the right word. She had been such a mess for the beginning of the season, dealing with Shauna, and we talked about the amazing scene in the pilot with her and Abby at the bar, but she sleeping in her daughter's room and calling using Madame Xanadu to call her daughter back from the dead and then inhabiting the little girl. Like there was a lot of craziness there. So then to see her get her shit together and essentially execute a hostile takeover of her husband's businesses was badass. Like I loved it. I loved the episode where she thought Avery was off to die, and so she went and she took a meeting with Woodrue, and he was like, well, I don't write for laymen, and she goes, no, I understand the science, here's what I need to know, and she just took control of the situation. I loved that. So I thought all that was great, and I was very disappointed with that Avery came back. Like Swamp Thing saved that jerk's life. Why you do that, Swamp Thing? That was not a good idea. If anyone deserves to rot in that swamp, it's Avery Sunderland. Like, let him. So when Avery comes back and takes it back by getting her committed, oh man, it pissed me off.
Okay, two things there. Number one, that is a legitimate fear I have, is being locked up in a padded cell when I'm perfectly sane.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
I mean, I'm not saying she's perfectly sane, but like seeing that happen to somebody, like getting drug away by the dudes in the white coats with the backwards jacket, that whole thing terrifies me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it legit does not sit well with me at all. Number two, there was another horror movie callback there, I think. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the part where she's leaned up against the wall and the arms start coming through and grabbing her, that feels
cool.
That feels like something from Day of the Dead.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That was a great... Speaking of just, like, cool, scary shit that happened, like, that was cool. But no, I agree with you because, like, if... I've seen it whenever I've seen like a movie or a TV show where someone gets committed and they're not crazy, it just feels like the most hopeless situation because there is literally nothing you can say that will make them believe you are sane.
Exactly.
And
there's no way to reason your way out of it. No.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's terrifying. So that was so evil on Avery's part, and I was very upset about it because Maria, I mean, she was not the nicest person either, but I just loved that she started beating Avery at his own game, but unfortunately she didn't win in the end. And when he comes to see her, and I loved it when she's like, this is not over. And he said, oh, it's over. And I do think that is a story that would have continued if the show continued. But I think that, yes, they were like, okay, we have to give Maria an ending. And so Madame Xanadu essentially allowing her to be with Shauna for eternity was sort of her ending, but I still wanted her to come back with a vengeance and go after Avery again.
I think Virginia Madsen would have liked that too, because she was the one that vented some frustration about the show being cut short initially.
Yeah, but she was great in this season. I mean,
I agree.
The whole episode where Shauna does inhabit Susie and it eventually ends up with them out in the swamp and she goes after Abby, like, oh man, that was great stuff. Yeah.
And you mentioned that she wasn't the nicest person either, and you're right, but I feel like her motivations for it are much stronger than, say, Avery's or Woodrue's or anybody else's.
Right.
Not to say, actually, Woodrue's got a pretty relatable story too. We'll circle back to that here in a second. But the idea that she thinks that this girl who was almost like a surrogate daughter and best friends with their daughter and everything else is responsible for the death of their flesh and blood daughter, I fully understand this character's motivation in not liking Abby or being upset that she's returned. I get it. Totally.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Woodrue being what he is, I mean, he's obviously brilliant, but he deeply cares for his wife, and losing her to that horrible disease, Alzheimer's. I fully understand his motivations too. There were moments where I found myself sort of rooting for him, even though I know in the back of my mind that he's essentially a villain character or whatnot. I was hoping that before at least he descended into some sort of a power trip, he was going to be able to save his wife.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. He's absolutely a villain. He is a bad guy. But the best bad guys are ones who, heroes of their own story, that old thing. Because he decided whatever it takes to save my wife. And you get that. Like, if there is one person in the world that you love more than anyone else, you would do anything to save them from something as horrible as Alzheimer's. And the clock is ticking. He's out of time. And so he makes some really horrible decisions. But for him, he's like, well, I have no choice. It's this or lose my wife forever.
I'd got a part of playing guy if it meant saving my wife. I ain't even going to lie.
Okay, can we talk about the autopsy? Speaking of disturbing and horrifying things that I watched on this show, oh my God, like my heart broke watching that scene. It was gruesome and gross and horrible and heartbreaking because Derek Mears' performance while being alive and conscious during his own autopsy is, oh man, it really got to me.
That was rough, and that was actually one of the moments where I thought to myself, nah, screw it, this guy can go, because Woodrue was enjoying himself a little bit too much during that.
Oh.
And I understand maybe he's enjoying the scientific perspective of seeing something this amazing that he thinks is going to save his wife, but the fact that he seemed to be actually taking enjoyment from inflicting that torture on Swamp Thing was brilliant on the part of the performance, but kind of sickening at the same time.
Oh my God, the pain in Swamp Thing's face was just unbearable. Like, it was so tough, but like good, effective. Like it was, but man, that really got me.
Did we ever confirm who did the voice for Swamp Thing? Was it Mears that did it? Or?
It, as credited, I have to believe it was Derek Mears. Because he is credited as Swamp Thing completely, so I just imagine it's him, and he's great. He's so good.
Yeah.
Like physically and the voice and the way he's able to emote through the makeup and the suit, he's terrific.
I full on agree with that. The actor that played Alec Holland specifically, I don't remember the actor's name off the top of my head. Bean? Something?
Andy. His name's Andy. Andy Bean.
Andy Bean. Okay. We questioned whether or not he was going to be the voice because he was credited for multiple, maybe all 10 episodes even. And
he's credited for all 10.
Yeah, but he kind of disappears after one. But the way that they bring him back and Alec and Swamp Thing kind of have the I guess you call it like an internal conversation sort of a thing, I thought was really brilliant and brought some emotional weight to both of the characters. And also the part where Swamp Thing retrieves Alec's deteriorated body from that water and basically coming to the realization that Alec is dead and he's not really human anymore. That was tough.
So that image is a very famous image. It's a cover of a comic book, and they used it to promote the show. I never realized that the body he was holding was his own. I didn't know that. And maybe I just haven't read that issue of the comic, or maybe it's a different body in the comic. I have no idea. But that scene, I mean, yes, this is the same episode as the autopsy, because that's the discovery that Woodrue makes when he's cutting Swamp Thing apart. He goes, you have organs, but they don't do anything. So the plant remembers having a human body, and it tried to recreate a human body, but you're not a man. You're a plant that thinks it's a man, which is like this big aha moment. But it was an aha moment I was ready for because I did go back and read the Alan Moore saga of Swamp Thing. So that's a big part of Alan Moore's take on the character, is that he's not actually Alec Holland. He is a new life that thinks it's Alec Holland, which is it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around, because it's like he is Alec, but he's not Alec. But that's the big reveal. And so when he goes back to the swamp to be sure, because up until now he had been holding out this hope that he could be made human again, and he comes out and he emerges with his own body in his arms. It's just another really heartbreaking and emotional and effective moment. And when he apologizes to Abby, holding his own body, going, "I'm sorry, Alec Holland is dead." Like, it's so effective.
Yeah, the chemistry that the two of them had, both as Alec and as Swamp Thing with Abby, was excellent. In fact, I would dare say that might be the highest of high points in the entire series, is the way those characters bounced off of each other.
Right, yeah. And according to the internet, yes, Derek Mears is also the voice. So
excellent, great.
Kudos, Derek Mears. Well done. So yeah, like, no, you're right. That was the way episode 9 ended, and it was really awesome.
Now, Anatomy Lesson apparently is a big time recognized story arc in the comics. I'm not into Swamp Thing comics. I should probably change that someday, but if only I had an app that had all these comics readily available for me at the click of a button.
That would be nice.
But that was a discussion that many of these Swamp Thing fans that I see on social media were talking about, was the big deal when the title reveal came for that 9th episode of being Anatomy Lesson, is they lost their crap, because that's apparently a big time deal in the comics.
Interesting.
So, I wonder if that Anatomy Lesson isn't the one you're talking about with the cover of him carrying that body out then.
Yeah, it could have been. I don't. Of the ones I read, it wasn't in there that I can recall. So,
see, I can't remember if they said Moore wrote it or not. So it may not have been.
Yeah, because I literally just did the Alan Moore run, but there were there were issues before and after that, and I didn't keep going because I have other things to read. But yeah, so interesting. I will have to look that one up, because now I am curious about it. Going back to episode 4, which we referred to before. So one thing I really liked about this show was how the swamp, it was like this nexus of supernatural activity. It was like the swamp itself was somehow haunted, and so a lot of weird stuff happens there that can't be explained. There's just something about this swamp that, like, there was a whole thing, and I'd completely forgotten about it, where the guy that gets drawn and quartered comes back together and becomes like this bug zombie. Mm-hmm. I forgot about that.
Yep.
And that's like terrifying. And again, there's not like they don't give a super clear explanation for it, other than this swamp is rotten and gross, scary stuff happens. And so for whatever reason, this guy gets put back together and becomes this terrifying swamp zombie.
And there was some nastiness going on with that too.
Oh, totally. Oh, man, that was so creepy. So in episode 4, it was another one of those just like horrible things that happen just because of the swamp, where there's 2 guys out in the woods and the body falls on one of them, and the body sort of accidentally bites the guy's arm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the rot. Was that the rot or part of
the
rot?
I think so. I think it was the rot.
We'll call it that. I can't remember if they had a better name for it or not, because the rot is also just this dark patch of the swamp as well that we visit a couple times.
There are various forces, and I know this from reading the Jeff Lemire Animal Man from New 52. There are apparently various forces, and I could be wrong on this, but there's the green, which is obviously plant life. There's the red, which is like animal life, and then there's the rot, which is like death, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the rot gets into this guy, and the guy works at Delroy's as the dishwasher, and he shows up to work, and he's doing the dishes, and he sees a venomous snake slither into the dishwater. And I'm not a snake guy. Snakes freak me out. So I'm already uneasy. And Liz is like, there's nothing in there. Just do your job. And all of a sudden, the snake climbs onto his arm, and he pulls a knife and starts attacking his own arm with the knife. So not only am I disturbed by the snake, the venomous snake biting into him, I'm disturbed by the fact that he is hacking up his own arm with this knife. And I oh my God, I couldn't. I just couldn't. It was like horrifying. And that was what made me scream and just writhe in agony trying to watch it both times. And then it ends with him eventually just putting his hand in the disposal. It was horrifying. And that's where, like, I think on the very first episode, I was like, oh, it's scary and it's horror, but it's not too bad. And I feel like by this point, I was like, never mind. Don't listen to me. It's horrible. It's so scary. Don't watch it. I mean, you should watch it. But, oh, man, that scene just was horrible. And then, like, that whole episode, I think, was just terrifying with the way that this thing got passed on. And, oh, man, it was so scary.
That's the one where Delroy's got the shotgun out and he's trying to fight off the attackers that killed his wife, and he almost kills Abby and Liz because of it.
Yeah, so it gets passed to Delroy, and then it gets passed to Lucilia, and then it gets passed to Abby.
That's a good episode.
Oh, it was really good. And what I liked about that episode is that it almost felt like a one-off. You know, there were plenty of things in that episode that were the overall season-long thread, but I feel like that particular problem was like introduced in that episode, and then it was resolved in that same episode. And I liked that. It was kind of a nice little side story that was part of the greater story, but I really liked that. And I liked the way that Swamp Thing eventually took it from Abby and passed it back to the corpse that gave it in the first place.
And then laid it to rest. I mean, that was a really cool ending. Instead of, like, you know, fighting, ripping the thing apart and all that other stuff, just kind of returning that body back to its resting place.
Right,
that was a good moment.
No, I agree. So yeah, that one was gnarly. Like I said, the bug zombie, for lack of a better term, that was pretty scary too.
The way that damn thing like melted back down into the floor and stuff, that unsettled me. And I don't get unsettled very easily.
And then there was like the ghost story episode with Shauna, which was pretty damn scary too. Like, if anything felt very James Wan, it was that. Like, I really loved, there was a shot where Virginia Madsen's character, she goes to console Susie, who saw the ghost of Shauna in her room. And I love that they don't even show it, but just to hear her explain it is really creepy. The way she goes, no, she's really mad. It's the girl who's in the pictures downstairs. Ooh, you know, like, just sends a shiver down your spine. And she goes, no, it's fine. You're having nightmares. Let me go get you a blanket. And then it's an uninterrupted shot of Maria leaving the bedroom, and she's talking, and she goes, you know, I used to have bad dreams when I was a kid. My mom would always get me a blanket. And she goes and she walks to the closet, grabs the blanket, and she walks back. And not only is Susie gone, but the bed is made. Mm-hmm. And it was just this great, creepy. It was a very James Wan-y type.
I was going to say, I really felt a Conjuring vibe going on in that moment. So yeah, that's apt to talk about James Wan's presence there.
Yeah,
I think.
And then the ghost of Shauna, like, in the bathtub, scolding her mom for trying to replace her. Man, this is some creepy stuff. But no, just lots of great, scary stuff throughout that. I really loved.
Another thing that's worth pointing out, I mean, we mentioned the horror feel. You've got kind of the creepy horror, a little bit of the zombie horror, if you count the rot bug zombie thing. I guess you could make a case for a little bit of voodoo, even though that's really not, like, really heavily played on outside of, I guess, Xanadu's powers. I guess you could make the argument for there. I don't want to call it slasher horror, but like the way Swamp Thing kills some of these things kind of feels like a sort of a Friday the 13th kind of a feel.
I think that's fair, though, because there's a moment, I want to say it's episode 2, because that guy that gets drawn and quartered, he hooks that dude, that poor like little deputy who never did anything to anybody. He, like, gets hooked in the face.
Yes.
With the, oh man, like speaking of things that made me go, oh.
Yeah.
So, and then even the way Avery kills Lucilia in the car, you know, there are certainly moments that feel slashery. So you're right, like the combination of different styles of horror. I mean, the autopsy, would that be body horror? Probably.
Yes, I was going to say there's numerous. I would say there's more body horror than anything else because the autopsy and the anatomy lesson, the first episode, even going back to the thing with what we call the Thing homage or whatnot, and the finding the plant guy in the bathroom leaned up against the mirror. That to me, that's like the most unsettling scene in the entire show. I don't know why, but it just is. So yeah, there's a lot of body horror going on with it. Well, yeah, ghost
especially
story kind of stuff.
When everybody has like the sickness, that's pretty. Yeah, that's
yeah. I mean, disease horror. I don't even know what you classify that as far as genre or subgenre. But it's not confined to one particular area of that, and it does an effective job with all of it.
No, I agree. It keeps you on your toes, while at the same time telling a really compelling story
with great character work.
Yeah, with amazing characters. We mentioned Madame Xanadu. Again, she's sprinkled throughout, but I do love the scene where when Daniel is like I said before, Avery sends these thugs to intimidate Liz, and Daniel jumps right in there and he's like, hey, like what the hell's going on? And he gets clocked in the head with a crowbar, and he's essentially going to be brain dead. And I like, and so Woodrue ends up testing some of his new serum on him, brings him back, but he's burning up. I love the moment where Xanadu comes to see him in the hospital and is like, just the way she says, "But I like you, Daniel." And so she helps him, even though it sounds like she wasn't supposed to. She's like, "I can't change your destiny, but I can try to help." And I don't know, I just really like that scene. I like that relationship between the two of them. Yeah, I just wish he'd have gotten a chance to team up with Swamp Thing. But wherever Daniel's going at the end, because when Daniel gets to escape, I hope that wherever he's driving to, he's either driving to his own show, or driving to Titans, or driving to Doom Patrol. So one thing that I thought might be the post-credit scene, and it's not, but they already have a good start on a Justice League Dark.
That's a fair point.
They've got Swamp Thing, they've got Blue Devil, they've got a Phantom Stranger, who we didn't get too into, but
I love that actor. I
he's
unfortunately
really good.
Can't ever remember his name, but I'm a big fan of Jeremy Saulnier's movies, and that guy's in all of Jeremy Saulnier's movies. He's tremendous. I love that guy.
He's really good. His name is Macon Blair.
Thank you,
IMDb. And then as long as Constantine, he went from his own show, he went to Legends, he went to Arrow, bring him over here. You got a Justice League Dark going. So I did wonder if they were going to set that up. So maybe we wouldn't get Swamp Thing season 2, but we would go from Swamp Thing to Justice League Dark.
We need a Detective Chimp, though.
Do we, though?
Yes, we do. And if you were up to date on Justice League Dark, you'd know why I say that.
I'm not convinced we do.
No, we do. And we need a Zatanna.
That's true. We do need her. So anyway, it was just a thought, because I was like, well, you already kind of got some of the pieces in place. It wouldn't take much to get there, but yeah, that's not what happened. But I like that they left. I liked where they left Blue Devil's story, because the whole time he's like, I just want to get back to LA. I want to get back to my life. I can't. And once he's finally free to do it, he's like, I think I'm meant for something else, and I need to go figure out what that is. So I love that he's like really embracing the heroic journey that's ahead of him. And so I do picture that in an alternate universe, there's a Blue Devil TV series that's like the old Incredible Hulk, where he goes from town to town helping people with their problems.
He's going to wander the earth like Kane from Kung Fu.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, I hope this isn't the last we see of him either, because I think they left him in a really good place where they can really build on it. I just don't know if there's any plans to do so.
I mean, I know they said that this one existed in a different quote-unquote universe than Titans and Doom Patrol, but Would it really take that much effort to combine them so that Swamp Thing could periodically show up or Blue Devil periodically show up? Would it?
I don't
would it really?
like. There's no reason they couldn't. There's nothing in this that contradicts that it's from a different world as the other shows. You know, like I don't think there's any reason they couldn't just have them pop up in other shows.
Of course, I've been saying the
like
same thing about Black Lightning for 2 seasons. There's no reason that can't exist either.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, and that's what they did with Constantine. He had his own show. It was not in the same CW universe, but he just showed up on Arrow and then on Legends, and it's fine. So there's no reason Swamp Thing and Blue Devil couldn't pop up in Titans or Doom Patrol. So says I.
I'm for it.
So you mentioned earlier Alec Holland and Swamp Thing having conversations, and towards the end of the finale, it's one of the final scenes. It's after Swamp Thing defeats all of these mercenaries. I do love that he keeps Nathan Ellery alive and allows him to be a warning to anybody who might come after him. I thought that was a great touch, where he's like, "You tell people what happened, and you tell people what I can do, and you tell people to leave me alone." I love that. I think that was awesome. But after that happens, Alec Holland pops up, and he and Swamp Thing have this conversation, and I thought it was an amazing scene where Alec is like, "Listen, like, you were trying so hard to get back to being me that, you know, you kind of lost sight of what you are, and it's not about me anymore. It's about who you want to be." And I just thought it was really powerful. I thought it was really strong. I think the performance by both of the actors was really good. And I don't know, like it to me, it really worked.
No, I couldn't agree more. That was actually one of my favorite. My favorite moment in the finale was actually the last conversation that Swamp Thing and Abby have. I love that moment between them. But I really think that's almost an extension of the conversation that Alec and Swamp Thing had just before.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's where I was going to go next. So perfect, because you're right. Like, there's this amazing conversation between Alec and Swamp Thing, where Swamp Thing is like, "Maybe I'm better off by myself. Maybe I just need to disappear forever." And Alec says, "Yeah, but Abby is your only connection to the human world, and do you really want to be without her?" And that's what convinces him to stay. So, like, really showing how important that relationship is. And then you're right, coming back around where Abby and Swamp Thing have a final scene together where they agree they're really important to each other. And Abby even says something to the effect of, "It's not just about who you were, but it's about who you are, and I care about you, and I want us to be in this together." Great
moments. I loved her chemistry with Holland and Swamp Thing both. I just think I really think that was my high point of the entire series.
She's so good. Like, she's so good in the show. And yeah, that final conversation between the two of them is awesome. And again, this is where they really do leave it open for another season, because Swamp Thing says the darkness is not gone. The darkness is still out there, and there is still, I'm paraphrasing, but something about, like, you know, there will still be challenges to overcome. And Abby just says, "Great, then we'll do it together."
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great resolution for their relationship if they are going to continue together in whatever way. But it certainly leaves it open for what are those challenges? What is that darkness going to bring if they're allowed to continue in one way or the other?
Hopefully we find out.
Wouldn't that be nice? But in that same finale, you know, they really do. They do a lot of work to wrap up everyone as well as they can. Again, Maria sort of gets a very tragic happy ending, I guess you could say, because she's still in this asylum, but she's somewhat happy in her mind because she gets to be with Shauna. Daniel Cassidy gets to escape Murray to go on and have adventures and save all our lives as the Blue Devil. Avery comes down with the sickness, so if we don't get a season 2, we're just going to assume that he succumbs to that. I want to picture him succumbing to that. I hope that's what happens. So they give some sort of resolution for most of it, but Jason Woodrue, you know, he's desperate now to save his wife. She has almost killed herself because she's so far gone. And he uses the organs that he harvested from Swamp Thing to create a cure. But before he's going to give it to his wife, he takes it himself. You see him double over in pain. You see he's not going to be, you know, this thing is going to affect him And Jamie, I'm sure you thought what I did, which is like, okay, here comes the Floronic Man.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets back up and he's still him, but he's obviously not the same. There's something wrong.
Now, you can actually make a case for this scene, and again, this may be a reach, but if you've ever seen the movie Hannibal, where at the end, he's got the top off of Ray Liotta and he's serving up pieces of his brain to him and all that other stuff. I mean, this whole setup just feels very reminiscent, where he's cooking up pieces of somebody and trying to feed it to a person who is restrained in a chair in the kitchen.
That makes sense. So, no, I get that. And so I thought, like, oh, this is going to be the transformation, and then this is going to lead to the big finale of Swamp Thing versus Floronic Man. And that's not what happens. Obviously, it has started, but he's still him. And then because Abby comes in, she calls the police. They end up showing up, saving the wife, locking him up, which is what gives us the post-credit scene. So I had my theories about the post-credit scene. What I really hoped is that they were going to use that to announce a season 2, because everybody wants one. So again, what the hell's the deal?
We're not getting the whole story with it. I'm convinced of it 100%.
There's something going on. It's so weird. Doesn't make any sense. But anyway, what we do get, though, in the post-credit scene is the reveal of the Floronic Man. So Matt, who survives this car crash. Matt is the son of Jennifer Beals, and that car crash scene, again, so scary because it's so real.
Yeah, that was very well shot there.
Oh man, it was shot like you were in the car, and whew, I think my whole body tensed up. And so he gets out of the hospital. He can't find his mom because the poor woman's in the trunk of a car in the swamp. I hope that the swamp goes into her brain and creates a swamp thingette, and she gets to come back in season 2. But anyway, he's looking for his mom. He goes back to the station, and the station, something has gone wrong, and Jason Woodrue's metamorphosis has taken effect, and he has broken out. He's killed one of the deputies, and we get the reveal of the Floronic Man. And man, he looks awesome. And that voice, that Jason Woodrue voice coming out of that Floronic Man, is scary and cool as hell. So I love the reveal. I thought he looked great, and yeah, I want to see more of him. So
watching the sequence, all I could think to myself is, I know they didn't shoot this just for this episode. This is something that they cut out of one of the 3 that we lost, and they just tacked it on the end in the hopes that someday they can come back around to it. But I still really liked it.
Oh, it was awesome, and it works as a great tease if they were getting another season. But if they don't, it becomes like the Legion of Doom setup at the end of Justice League. Just a heartbreaking of what if, you know?
Yep.
But he looked awesome. I'll say, I mean, we mentioned how great Swamp Thing looked. I thought Blue Devil looked great. And then I think that Floronic Man looked great. These suits, whoever's making these suits is doing some great work, because I think they look awesome. And I like that they do just enough CG on top of them. Like, they let them be practical suits, and then they just enhance them with CG. And I think it works great, because you always you believe that they're there because they are there. They really are there, and they just use the CG to make them do a little extra stuff that a physical suit can't do. I think it's a great strategy. I think that it saves them money, and they look good. So that's the other thing about getting a season 2, and you're right, I don't want to harp on it, but I keep mentioning it. I'm sorry. All the stuff is made, you know? Like, there's less startup costs because the sets and the costumes are already made. It shouldn't cost as much to keep going.
Look, if you're having problems with North Carolina, just move it to Louisiana. Have Cafe Du Monde and Central Grocery cater the whole thing for you. And, you know, have legit Louisiana setting for the swamps. It can't be that expensive to shoot in Louisiana. It can't be.
I know, right?
It's not like they're shooting in downtown Hollywood or Manhattan or something, you know. It's and that's no disrespect to Louisiana, because I loved my time down there for the whole 7 or 8 days I was there. But
no, I know.
It can't be that expensive to shoot there. It cannot. I agree. But again, I don't think this problem with the tax credits is. I would believe that a combination of a number of things that we heard are the reasons that season 2 is not currently on a slate, but there's just something else we're not getting there, and it's kind of maddening that we can't get that information and figure out what it is.
Right. Yeah, I know. So anyway, that is how it ends. Of course, we would love to see it paid off, but if not, oh well, like, life goes on. But yeah, I would love to see these versions of these characters survive in one way or the other, because they're so good. It's such a good show. It deserves more, but I loved the 10 episodes that I did get, and I loved revisiting them. I was blessed that I had the time to actually do it. I thought for sure I would fail, but yeah, I just didn't make any plans this weekend. It was quite nice. So yeah, just some closing thoughts on the first season of Swamp Thing, Jamie.
I think it juggled a lot of things, but didn't sacrifice any of the others to make something work better, if that makes any sense. Like, they played the horror elements, they played the dramatic character elements, the heartbreak. You felt for a number of the characters, you know, Abby, Alec, Swamp Thing, what was Virginia Madsen's character's name? I can't remember. Maria, thank you. I'm terrible with those name things. I think that even Daniel Cassidy, to an extent, you know, you kind of feel bad for him being in the situation that he is. I mean, they balanced so much there. I just think it was a really impressive show overall. I really do. And again, when I said at the beginning that this was probably my least favorite of the DC shows, that's not a commentary on this being a low-grade show in any fashion. It's just probably more a commentary on how really fantastic the other ones are, in my opinion. But, you know, Milks and a couple of other people in the Real Fans groups are talking about how this is their favorite series in the thing. And you know what? I ain't even mad at that. You know, if this one worked better for you than the other ones, great. I see why it did. It just, for me personally, it didn't. But it'll be really sad if we don't get more of it somewhere down the road, hopefully sooner than later. But if we don't, I mean, it's really tough to complain about what we got, because I think they did a commendable job with what they were given to work with in that short amount of time, and then dealing with the handicaps that they were given as production went along, no less. I mean, to pull off what they did, given the circumstances they were evidently working under, is really impressive.
Yeah, I have to ditto all of that. It's a great show. It's a great season. It's a hell of a good watch. It's a little scary, so if you don't like scary, maybe it's not for you. But for anybody who likes a little horror mixed in with their comic book and some great drama with some great actors and some great characters, Swamp Thing's terrific. For me, it's just another winner for DC Universe. The DC Universe original content has been spectacular. I've been happy with all of it, and this is not an exception. It's a terrific show, and kudos to the creative team, to the cast, to the crew for putting together such a great version of Swamp Thing. Very true to the source material, and also really unique spins on it as well. Kept me engaged the entire time, and I had a great time watching it. I love the show. And so if this is all we got 10 really fantastic hours of Swamp Thing storytelling, and for that, I am grateful. And for giving me my very first live-action Blue Devil, I am more than grateful. I am overjoyed, and please give Ian Ziering his own miniseries, a Blue Devil miniseries with Ian Ziering. Take my money. I will buy a second subscription if you give me that. How about that?
One more thing.
I'll gift it to Brendan.
Right. I mentioned earlier how great the designs and everything were, especially for like Swamp Thing and Blue Devil and all that other stuff. I'm here to tell you, I think that that's a timeless thing, so much so that if I go back, you know, if I'm still around 20 or 30 years from now and I'm hankering to revisit the show, I think I'll wind up watching it and thinking to myself, wow, they did an amazing job with that. Because I don't think they'll, if they get to the point where they do another series of it, or, you know, years down the road, or eventually another movie in the cinemas or whatever, I don't know how they're ever going to make a better looking Swamp Thing than what they did for the show. I really don't.
No, yeah, I agree. It was the perfect design for Swamp Thing himself. Like, again, huge kudos to the special effects team, the costuming team. Getting that look of Swamp Thing, it was a huge win. And you're right, I couldn't imagine a better look for him. Good stuff. Season 1 of Swamp Thing. Just because it's canceled doesn't mean you shouldn't watch it. Please watch it. You owe it to yourself as a fan, because it's just a really, really good show. And want to support it however we can. So that's that. Currently, Young Justice Season 3 Part 2, yeah, there's a mouthful, is going as well, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that. So we're continuing to enjoy the content that DC Universe is giving us, and hopefully you guys are watching right along with us and enjoying us discussing it here on this show. But just because we were discussing the new stuff on DC Universe, we're also discussing the old stuff on DC Universe, because it sounds like an advertisement. I'm not getting any money. I just really like DC, and so I like having it all in one place. But there's some old animated series on DC Universe, and that includes Batman Beyond. And so as we kicked off on the last episode, we're continuing our journey through Batman Beyond with the next episode of the series, which is episode 4, Golem. All right, so we reviewed the first 3 episodes of Batman Beyond last time, and now we are moving forward with episode 4, Golem. So, what happens in this episode? Okay, first of all, this aired February 6th of 1999, and we meet the character of Willie Watt. He is the nerdy little guy. Poor guy. He's got a crush on the pretty popular girl in school. Just wants to spend some time with her, offers to tutor her, which is so nice of him, but she's not interested. She's dating the big man on campus, the jock, something Nash. What the heck was his name?
Sure, I don't know.
Well, that was very helpful. It was something Nash. I can't remember. And so Nash,
all I can tell you is that
jerk,
guy's apparently voiced by Seth Green, which, wow, that doesn't sound like Seth Green to me at all.
He is,
unless
which
it's
is
a different
super fun.
Seth Green.
No, it's the same Seth Green. If you listen to it knowing it's Seth Green, you go, oh yeah, I can hear it. Yeah, Seth Green is, I guess because Seth Green's so little and travel-sized in real life, he was very happy to voice the big man on campus.
There you go. Did you happen to notice there was also somebody in the cast list at the end of this one whose last name was Disney?
Yes, Melissa Disney. She is a voice actor who has done a lot of stuff. But I don't know how she is related to the Disney family. It's like I want to say it's like a second cousin or something. Because, yeah, I did know that, which is so interesting.
Did you happen to notice what you get if you read her name backwards?
Nope, I didn't.
All right, just curious.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Is it maybe the name of a wizard, perhaps?
It might be. I don't know.
Could it be? Anyway, Willie Watt, he starts getting bullied by Seth Green. Like, who gets bullied by Seth Green? Willie does. Terry McGinnis.
Mini-Me gets bullied by Seth Green.
Oh, that's a good point. Terry McGinnis steps in, helps him out. Willie's got this domineering father who's like, stop being such a wuss, gotta fight back for yourself. He's a construction guy. And on the construction site, there's this massive robot golem that is doing a lot of their work for it. So imagine like the lifter from Aliens, but like 3 or 4 times as big. That's the golem. And so Willie steals the golem to take revenge on Nash. And he starts causing havoc. He crushes his car. Batman, Terry McGinnis as Batman, steps in, try to save some people, but Willie still manages to get Nash's car. And like through the craziness, Batman takes down the golem, which like electrocutes the golem, which then somehow gets transmitted to Willie's little controller headset. And through this, they become like linked electronically. So now Willie can control the golem without even the headset.
Welcome to Pacific Rim Origins.
There you go. And so now he's also starting to kind of lose it a little bit, but the popular girl takes him to the dance to get back at Nash. She doesn't actually like Willie. She just wants to get it her boyfriend. So she takes Willie to the dance, but she's not being particularly nice to him. He goes to get them punch, which is very nice. And then Nash shows up and is like, come on, be with me again. And she's like, okay, that was easy. So Willie gets screwed. Nash and his buddies like rough him up a little bit. And he's like, okay, that's it. To hell with this. And he gets the Golem back. Golem.
Smeagol.
And yes, and causes all this havoc at the dance, which is at an amusement park. And so then Terry McGinnis, who was just trying to have a nice evening at the dance with his girlfriend, has to jump into the Bat costume and stop Golem as well. He does defeat the Golem. The dad shows up, realizing that it was Willie who stole the Golem. And so he and Willie have to have a talk. But the dad is like not very mad because he's like, yes, my boy's not a wuss anymore. Or something.
Yeah.
And so
priorities.
Terry's kind of like silently sad.
I would rather my son be a hardened, convicted criminal than a pussy.
Right, that. And so Willie gets shipped off to a correctional facility for a couple of years, and you see that even though the Golem is gone, his like electrical powers are still intact because he's able to manipulate the TV in the prison, and we leave him there. He seems very happy, so it seems like it's not the last time we're going to see Willie, but I honestly don't know the show well enough to know if he ever comes back. So, Jamie, what are your thoughts on this episode 4, Golem?
It wasn't.
It's always a good start.
It wasn't bad. Okay. I may be being overly critical here, what have you, but I feel like it's too early in this series to start trying to do this. Like, if you want to pull this in Batman the Animated Series where you're introducing a new villain and spending more time developing them than obviously, say, Bruce Wayne's Batman or anything like that, I kind of get that because your audience knows that character well enough by that point where you can afford to be a little bit experimental about. Here, speaking from my own perspective, somebody who's watching this series for the first time, I don't feel like we know Terry well enough as a character where we can start taking these experiments this quickly. Like, I really felt like there wasn't a lot of Batman in this episode. Mm-hmm. Again, maybe that's being nitpicky. I don't know, but I'm in the process of trying to get to know Terry as a character and as Batman, and to take that element away from this episode and focus more on this villain. I don't think he was necessarily a bad villain. I just don't think he was a particularly great one. Mm-hmm. Like, the most interesting thing to me is that all of a sudden now he has control over other electronics. I would have rather seen more of that in, the final sequence of this where he's controlling other electronics. Like, the Golem goes down in the second part, so he's, throwing more electronics at everybody instead of the Golem in the final bit. I don't know.
Right.
To me, that would have been more interesting. Again, I'm probably being harsh. I know, but.
So I just noticed this. He has power over electronics, and his name is Willie Watt.
I didn't catch that until you just said it. So
neither did I until I was looking at his name and I was like, oh, Watt. I get it.
That's a Stan Lee-ism if I've ever seen one.
Yes.
So anyway, I think the episode was fine. I just don't think it was particularly great.
Cool. I think your point is really valid. That makes a lot of sense. This doesn't give us much time with Terry. So, and you're right, it's only the 4th episode. So we're not super invested in Terry yet. This feels like one of those episodes that, like, it's when you know your show is for syndication, and so it's completely self-contained. So you can air it at any time, and it can just be a random adventure of Batman Beyond. So there's not a lot of Bruce Wayne in this one, which already makes me sad because, as we said, I think Bruce Wayne is like the best part of the show. And so he gets like one scene, I think. So you don't get a lot of Bruce here. They do give Terry a new power, though, which is interesting. So you get to see that he has a camouflage ability. So they are having a little more fun trying to figure out what that suit can do. So I like that. I like the building of the abilities of the suit. I think Willie Watt is okay. I like the idea of the Golem. I just didn't like the design of the Golem. It was like this big yellow lemon on legs. I just didn't care for the design. Like, if I was a kid watching this show and there's a giant robot, I should want to buy a toy of that robot. But if the robot looks like this, I don't want a toy of that. It's not very cool looking. So I feel like there was a cooler version of the Golem they could have done. But as far as like a new villain, it was an interesting take. The Golem is like this old legend. I don't know if you're aware, how familiar with it.
It's like a Jewish legend thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like the Golem. It's like a clay giant that was sculpted and brought to life to protect the Jewish people. So this is very much a take off of that, where instead of a big clay giant, it's, a big robot, but still he uses it to protect himself or to defeat his oppressors, and that's what the Golem does in the old Jewish legend. So I think that's kind of an interesting take as well. I like the Batman Beyond stuff. I like what he can do. I like the action in it. But yeah, like for me, it's just sort of a middle of the road episode. It's okay. There's nothing inherently bad about it, but there's also nothing that makes it really stand out or special on its own.
Sounds like we saw the same episode.
Yeah, I like the glow-in-the-dark basketball. I thought that was cool.
The simple things that keep you
Tron
happy.
basketball, So no, I mean exactly, but it is. This is totally just like it's fine, it's alright. So
I think this episode works better later in the run than this early. Is really where I sit.
Sure, no, that makes sense. But I mean, as I said on the last episode, is they were trying to build a new Rogues Gallery, and so this was just another attempt at that. Yeah. And I'll be very interested as we go through the series to see if Willy Watt comes back.
Boy, they love having that Joker gang around too, don't they?
Yeah, they do. But I did like Willy taking out the Jokers. That was pretty cool.
The joke he delivered was terrible.
Yeah, it's not great. But yeah, like I will be interested to see if he comes back, and if he doesn't come back, they will probably. Then it sounds like they maybe agreed, as they're like, it didn't quite work. We'll just leave it.
Yeah, if he comes back, I'll take it because again, I'm the most interesting thing to me is exploring his other powers. If you're not going to give me development on Batman in this episode, that's fine. We've got plenty of episodes that we know we're going to spend time with him. So, the most interesting thing to me with Willy is what else is he going to be able to do? What's he going to come up with? Is he going to have a vendetta against Batman for being responsible for getting him behind bars? Is he going to be mad at his father for celebrating the idea that he's no longer a wimp? Just all this stuff. I think there's interesting elements there. I just don't know that everything came together quite as well as it could have or would in a second episode, if you would.
Yeah. So what would you give it for a letter grade?
C.
Yep, same. C. For just being middle of the road.
It was
fine.
It was watchable. Would I watch the episode again? I would, but I wouldn't go out of my way to do so.
Yeah. Like if you were showing someone Batman Beyond, no one would go, but you got to see the Golem episode.
Right.
All right. Well, 2 C's for Golem as we continue our watch of Batman Beyond, which means the next one we are going to do is Meltdown, which I think is the only episode of Batman Beyond we have previously reviewed on this show.
Not counting Return of the Joker, yes.
But we're going to do it again.
Okay.
Because I'm a completist like that.
Yeah, no problem by me.
So there you go. If you're following along, the next time you're going to watch episode number 5, Meltdown. And now it is time to hear from you fine folks as we crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It is time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all, Master Wayne.
All right. First message here is from Jonathan Tyler Patrick. It says, "Hey, Batcasters, I'm excited to hear about Batman Beyond as the new series. It makes sense. I got thinking, why didn't you do Mystery of the Batwoman as a capper to transition out of Batman the Animated Series? It would be cool with the show coming up too. Also, when you end Batman Beyond, please do the Justice League Unlimited episode Epilogue, which is the unofficial end to the series. Thanks for the great show, Jonathan Tyler Patrick." Thanks, Jonathan. Nice to hear from you. Mystery of the Batwoman, that is a great idea, and I wish I had thought of it, but I didn't think of it, so now we'll find some time to do it.
I've never seen it.
I'll be interested to hear your thoughts.
I've been told numerous times, because I know it's not Kate Kane.
No.
But I don't know who it is, because it's a mystery and I haven't seen it.
It's the mystery of the Batwoman. I mean, we can put that on the sooner than later list, because whenever we set up one of these shows, it's like, okay, here are a couple options. Let's put it in those options and try to do it soonish.
I was going to say, invariably, I'm going to get a message from you about midweek. It's like, are we doing an episode this weekend? What are we doing it on? So I guess I know the answer the next time you ask me that question.
You only got a few days of rest before I start bugging you again. And then epilogue, yes, we will. That makes sense. We will do that.
So we're going to do that twice, because invariably when we're in our 70s, we're going to be to the Justice League series. So we're going to have to do that again then too.
Yeah, but by then I won't remember what we said.
Fair point.
This next message is from Alec.
Ennis?
Holland? Alec. It's Alex Smith.
Oh.
Alec, change your last name to Holland, please. Because that would be so cool. Okay, anyway, here's what he says. He says, hey, Andy, Jamie, and Brendan. I've been listening to your show for around 5 years now. And after listening to the Wayne Manor mailbox section of your Comic-Con episode, I was surprised to hear that 2 people, hopefully more, have recommended The Batman as the next show to review. After hearing that, I had to submit my vote for it as well. The entire series is full of a great rogues gallery, including Black Mask, classic Batman action, a great Alfred, and a strong storyline. Also, the theme song for the first few seasons is one of my favorites. Anyway, the Batman has always had a special nostalgic place in my bat heart, and much to Brendan's joy, I think you all would heavily enjoy reviewing the show. Thanks for all the Bat-tastic content, Alec. Well, if this is the first time you've written in, hello. Thank you for the message. I'm glad you've been listening for 5 years. 5 years, Jamie, 5 years.
Crazy.
So now you know that we're doing Batman Beyond, but I was all for doing the Batman. I had no problem with that. But we'll get, hopefully we'll get to it.
Brendan was throwing a hissy fit that the Batman didn't win that poll, because that was his suggestion.
I know. That's why he's not on this episode, is because he's having a hissy fit out in Australia. Isn't it so nice to do one without him? Oh, my God.
Well, I'm kind of mad at him anyway, because I heard the beginning of the latest episode of Nightlight 2.0, because him and Jeremy Lloyd are going over Stranger Things Season 3, and he introed Jeremy Lloyd by saying, all the way from Cincinnati, Illinois.
Illinois?
Yes.
Oh, adorable. To be fair, I don't know the different... Are they provinces in Australia? Maybe?
I don't know. I was teasing him about it in our little group chat thing, because I said, do they not teach geography in Brisbane, South England? Because I don't know. Is it just Brisbane, Australia, or is it New South Wales? Is that where it's at? God, I don't know. Obviously, I didn't pay attention in geography either, so I can't be mad at him.
Right. Anyway, Alec, thank you for the recommendation on The Batman. And yes, we do want to get to that, because I agree with you. Like, I don't have nostalgia for it because I missed it the first time around, but I have certainly grown to appreciate it. This message here is from Aaron. It says, hey, Andy, Brendan, and Jamie, I've attached a link to an audio recording of the Justice League Mortal script. It's read by some podcasters and was posted a few years ago. I found it very entertaining. I thought you guys might like it if you didn't want to read the script. If the link doesn't work, just search Justice League script. It's just a group of people doing a podcast. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate that. And one of these days we will get around to reviewing it. And now, Jamie, if you don't want to read and you just want to listen, you've got an option.
Can we just contact these people and ask them if we can, borrow their audio and put that in as the episode and save me the homework?
No, because I want us to talk about it.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's not as fun. Listen to this one. This is from Ron Messbarger. It says, hey, Andy, Brendan, and maybe Jamie. It says, I was listening to your latest podcast, kicking off Batman Beyond, and Andy, what you said really made me think. The creative team had one heck of an obstacle creating new villains. Do you think that Batman Beyond would do better if they tried to remake it now with more tie-ins to Batman as we know him? Because the newer characters within the Batman mythos, they could have more tie-ins. My ideas or thoughts would be used to Court of Owls, Damian Wayne as Ra's al Ghul, Arkham Knight, while keeping some of the new Rogues Gallery. Thanks for all that you guys do. with all the difficulties with schedules, we really do appreciate it. Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you for appreciating it. What do you think, Jamie? Like, if Batman Beyond, I mean, and I don't know if you were reading the current comics, maybe they do this.
They
comics.
do a lot of it. I actually just cut that one off of my pull list a few months back, more for financial reasons than from not enjoying. But Dan Jurgens is writing that. I'm a fan. I think he's a good writer. I think the book had more good than bad going for it. There were a couple of arcs where I was just like, oh. But more often than not, I was intrigued, especially by stuff like Damian becoming the new Ra's al Ghul. I was like all about that arc. The Joker making a true return appearance, like Dan Jurgens told his own version of like the return of the Joker, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they took some liberties in doing that and involving more of Batman's classic style rogues gallery than coming up with a great deal. I mean, there were new ones involved too, of course, but yeah, I mean that kind of stuff to me was more interesting because it was playing in a arena that I was more familiar with going in, which I think is part of the downside I have with this show is not knowing enough about it going in,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then the lack of familiarity, if you will.
No, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Like, the more time has passed, the more you kind of think of ways to tie in other things. And, no, I think that would work. I do think so. I have to bring this up real quick because I'm sorry, I don't remember who tweets me because there's a lot of them, but someone tweeted me correcting me on Batman Beyond, because when we kicked it off last time, I said, oh, you know, they were given this assignment as like, we want a younger, cooler Batman in the future. And apparently, I only got that kind of right. Apparently, they did say we want a younger, cooler teenage Batman, but they didn't say in the future. But I guess that Paul Dini and Bruce Timm were like, if you want a teenage Batman, it can't be Bruce Wayne. And so the only way to do a new Batman who's a teenage Batman is if you do it in the future where Bruce Wayne can't be Batman anymore. So sometimes, yeah, like the actual story and then some of the, shall we say, urban legends and then some of my own speculation all get mixed up together. And so I thought that the future was part of the assignment, but I guess that was part of the solution for the challenge they were given. So apologies for that.
All right, then.
Next message here is from Horace McNichol. It says, hey, Holy BatCast, what if Sylvester Stallone had played Superman in Superman the movie? Also, what's your favorite Sly Stallone movie? And role between Rambo and Rocky? What if my favorite movie isn't Rambo or Rocky? Horace, is that okay?
Is it Tango and Cash?
Does it have to be one of those two?
Is it Lords of Flatbush?
No. It's Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
Oh. Estelle Getty. I mean, you can't go wrong there.
I mean, National Treasure Estelle Getty, obviously.
You can't see it,
Jamie?
but I'm making her little Sicilian hex gesture at you right now.
I can picture it. What if Sly had played Superman, and what's your favorite Sly Stallone movie role between Rambo and Rocky?
I don't see the Superman thing at all. I really don't. But crazier things have happened and worked, I guess. And asking me to pick between Rambo and Rocky, man, that's like asking me to. Look, I love both of those series. I really love both of those series. Both of them have one movie that I refuse to acknowledge in the series. But past that, I really love everything else that's going on in them. Like, I hate Rambo 3 and I hate Rocky 5. But past that, I love everything about them. So asking me to pick between those two, man, that's a rock and a hard place. I can't. I don't know. I would say for sentimental reasons, I would have a really hard time picking between the second Rambo movie where he's in Vietnam rescuing the POWs and Rocky 4, because I think those are the two that I've watched the most out of those series. Mm-hmm. But choosing between those two characters, man, I can't do it. I cannot.
All right. Sylvester Stallone as Superman? No. I'm so glad that didn't happen. I love Sylvester Stallone. I do. I love him. And honestly, I love so many of his movies, even ones that people don't like. Like, I like Judge Dredd. I'm sorry. I like it. I love Demolition Man.
Oh, Demolition
Don't
Man's
at me.
fantastic. I love that movie.
I like Sly. I just don't think he's Superman in any way, shape, or form. If you're going to make me choose between Rambo and Rocky, I go with Rocky. I just like those movies more. And I like the character of Rocky Balboa, I think just has so much more soul, if that makes sense. So I will go with Rocky. But if you want my real favorite Sly Stallone movie, no jokes, my favorite one, and it's weird, and it was a flop, and most people don't even like it. Probably most people don't even remember it. Daylight. The one where he's trapped in the tunnel. I love that movie.
I mean, I've probably
why.
seen
Just
like
love
almost every other movie he's ever made except for that one, honestly.
Check it out. I'd love to hear your thoughts, like coming in fresh, because I really like that one.
Huh.
It's very like Sly does the Poseidon Adventure, but for me, I like that.
I'll have to check it out.
All right, next message is from Kim Wild that says, "Hey guys, it's not really a Batman question, but I was curious. Which superhero cliche are you most sick of seeing? Personally, I could do without the inspirational fake out. Our hero has a moment of introspection and finds the courage to continue on, only to have that moment undercut by a joke. It's become so commonplace whenever I see a determined look on a character's face and the music begins to swell, I know we are mere seconds away from a sight gag. Anyway, thank you for the countless hours of entertainment and for making my work week a little more tolerable. Kim." Thanks, Kim. Great to hear from you. I mean, I think that your choice makes a lot of sense, and I'm with you on that. Anything else, Jamie, like a superhero cliche that you're tired of?
Many times I get stumped by these questions and I can't come up with a ready answer. I have my answer ready to go like instantly with this one. I am sick to effing death of the final act battle sequence in a superhero movie. I don't care if it's Avengers or Justice League or whatever. I am sick to effing death of the cannon fodder villains being thrown into the mix just for the heroes to have something else to fight. Like where this really kicked in.
Like the Shatari from Avengers?
You know, I was fine with it at that point because it wasn't an overused trope to that point. But when we got to, say, Age of Ultron, and they had, instead of the Avengers having to fight one Ultron, which is basically all I've ever known the Avengers to fight is one Ultron at a time. I mean, you obviously have scenarios that there have been more, but like the tin can Ultrons, for them to have something to fight instead of them having to contend with just the one villain threat there was just annoying as F to me. I couldn't stand it. The Justice League, people, I don't want to hear about it. You know I like this movie. I've said it since the beginning. I like the movie. I could deal with it just a little bit more in that because it was parademons, and I think that's cool seeing parademons on the screen for the first time. But if they would have made a Justice League sequel where they did it again with something else, I would have been just as annoyed with that as I would have with Marvel or anybody else doing it, because I'm tired of this. I just saw Spider-Man Far From Home. They essentially do that same kind of thing at the end of this, although to a lesser degree, I suppose. I'm tired of cannon fodder crowds for superheroes to fight at the end of their movies. Like, let the villain be the villain and be the real threat instead of, Avengers Endgame. The end of that movie, like all of the Black Order and all of their troops and everything come out. Totally unnecessary. Thanos could have been the one that all of these guys were fighting at one time if he had that Infinity Gauntlet. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand the logistics of making that work on a screen are probably harder than a comic book panel, but at the same time, that's really what I personally want. But yeah, that's my answer. Bar none, I'm sick to death of cannon fodder crowds at the end of movies.
Okay, that's cool. I agree with Kim's choice. I don't like on both sides. Like, I don't like when a sentimental or a serious moment has to get cut with a joke. That drives me nuts.
I love it when that happens personally.
Oh yeah, it's Jamie's favorite, but I don't like it. So, and then the other thing, and it's a simple thing and it's a nerdy thing, but I hate the way they always have to rip their masks off as much as possible so we can see the actor's face. Like, no, like let them wear their masks. You know, I want them to look like superheroes. So, thanks for the message. Next message is from our pal Julian Chan. What does Julian say? It says, hey guys, listening to you guys talk about the question gave me an idea. What do you think about the idea of a 10-episode show featuring a different hero each week? This way they could give the second-tier characters their moment in the sun, much like Batman the Brave and the Bold, except no Batman. They could call it like DC Tales or something. My lineup for the season would be Wildcat, Sergeant Rock, The Question and Detective Chimp, Zatanna, Adam Strange, Lady Blackhawk, Deadman, Phantom Girl, The Vigilante, and Metal Men. And then the more popular ones could return in following seasons. I'd watch the hell out of this. That's it. Cheers, Julian. Thank you, Julian. And Jamie, thoughts?
I approve of this idea.
I do too. Like I love the idea of being able to introduce some lesser known characters to a wider audience. I think this would be a great way to do it. That is part of what I love about The Brave and the Bold, is like you've got Batman as the hook, but through Batman, you get to introduce people to a bunch of other characters. So whether this is just, each episode is a solo adventure with a different hero, or if it is more of a team-up thing, either way, I'm all for it. And I would like to see a lot of these characters get a chance to be shown in a new way and to be introduced to a wider audience. I'm all for it. This message is from Julian Espinoza. It says, hey, Andy, Jamie, and possibly Brendan. Ooh, Jamie, you got that one.
I got my seat back, yay.
We're going to start counting how many people say possibly Brendan and possibly Jamie. It says, I've been listening since October of last year. This is a 4-part question.
Wow,
my first question is, how do you guys, I know, start taking notes. How do you guys feel about the casting of Robert Pattinson in terms of the body type? Because Pattinson's a more slender guy, do you think they would have to make the bat suit kind of like Arkham Knight, which has armor? Or do you think he'll try to beef up for the role? Well, I guess that's 3 questions. My 4th question would be, do you guys think you'll be making an episode looking back at the Arkham Asylum video game, seeing that it's coming up on its 10th anniversary on August 25th, and how it revolutionized comic-based video games? Thanks so much, and sorry for all the questions. Thanks, Julian, and good to hear from you. It's all good. So Robert Pattinson, his body type, and then how will that work with either the Batsuit or him beefing up? What do you think, Jamie?
I'm fine with Pattinson until I'm given a reason not to be fine with him. In other words, when I watch the movie, I'll let you know for sure, but I don't have an issue with it. Body type, that can change. That can alter. If he's going to be a more slender Batman and not the massive slab of beef that Ben Affleck was in the suit, I'm okay with that. Obviously, I want him to be fit. I want him to be able to fight, and I want him to be able to handle himself. But, not every Batman drawing I've ever seen is this massive, intimidating presence. Sometimes he's more of an average size looking kind of a guy. So, I'm, physique and whatnot can certainly be altered to whatever Matt Reeves and they decide to make it. What was the 3rd question there?
That's it for Robert Pattinson. The other question was about Arkham Asylum.
I've never played it, and at this point, it's not likely that I ever will, although it's not because of lack of interest. It's because I need to sleep at some point.
Right. Honestly, I agree with pretty much everything Jamie said. I think Robert Pattinson will be great. Yes, I think he will put on a little muscle, but don't expect him to become the tank that Ben Affleck was, and that's okay because Batman can be more slender and acrobatic instead of just being huge. So I think that's fine, and actually I look forward to that.
If they push that acrobatic angle with Batman in this one more so than the giant brutal force that he was in, say, like the Martha rescue scene, not that I don't love the Martha rescue scene, mind you, but if he's doing flips and kicks and all that other stuff and a lot of like aerial assault sort of things, people are going to lose their flipping minds on that, myself included.
Totally. And then Arkham Asylum, I would love to do that, but that would mean, yes, I'd have to play it, and I don't know if I'm going to do that in time for August. But that is I know that's a huge blind spot from the show, and that's just because we're not gamers and we just can't commit the time to it. So I appreciate the idea, and maybe there's a way I can make it work, but no promises. I'm sorry.
The Arkham Knight arc that just wrapped up in Detective about a month or so ago was really good. I can say that much.
Cool. Next message is from Eli Hernandez. It says, "Hey, Andy, Brendan, and Jamie. I love the show because as a teenager, the two things that made my day after having a bad day at school were Batman the Animated Series and The Simpsons. So when you guys reference The Simpsons on this program, it warms my black heart." Anyway, curious, what are your favorite B or C list Batman villains? Oh, God, Eli's about to get on Jamie's bad side. He said, "I still consider Ra's al Ghul a B list, even though he's my favorite B list villain. I enjoy the podcast. Keep up the good work, Eli Hernandez." Thanks, Eli. Good to hear from you. And yeah, Batman and The Simpsons. What can be better? Only maybe Futurama. But fortunately, there's a podcast for that now.
I approve all of this.
Favorite B or C list Batman villains, Jamie?
I can't even contest him about the Ra's al Ghul thing. I mean, you'd think I'd be in a raging fit about that, but I mean, it's not untrue. I think he's come around in popularity and awareness more in the last 20 years than he probably did in the first 20 years of his existence, 20, 25, whatever it was. I think he came around like 72 or 74. So he's actually a little older than me and still looks better. Maybe I need a Lazarus pit. Yeah, I
think we all need a Lazarus pit.
I've already got the insanity thing, so it's not like that's going to affect me. Past that, boy, maybe the Reaper. I know that's not going to be a popular choice with Andy, but spoilers, there was just a annual, I think it was Detective Annual number 2 or 3, where they introduced a really interesting concept with the Reaper in there, and it just brought my attention back around to that, and I loved it. So probably not the most amazing choice, but like I think that's one that I've always wondered why that character didn't take off better than it did. So
have you seen the multiverse action figure of the Reaper that's out there?
No. I didn't know there was one.
Yeah, there is one. It's pretty rad.
Guess I'm going
I'm
shopping
fine with you
today.
choosing it, but I would call the Reaper D-list just because he's
way back.
Much, you know?
He's way back.
Yeah. Favorite B or C list? I mean, if you would call the Scarecrow B list, I would go. I mean, you know, I love the Scarecrow. I'd probably call him B list, B plus list, but probably.
Right on the cusp.
I've always liked Mad Hatter for some reason. I don't know why, but there's something about Mad Hatter that I just think is fun. I think it's honestly the Batman the Animated Series episode that made me really like Mad Hatter. So he's definitely B or C list, and I would go with him too. Speaking of D list, I've always liked Magpie.
Interesting.
Just because we can always use more female villains, and I feel like she's fun, and I feel like she's never really gotten a lot of love, but I like her. And then from Batman 66, you know I love Egghead and King Tut. So I'd like to see them played with more in the comics. That would be so fun if someone... I know they've popped up in like the Batman 66 comic, and I know there was a version of King Tut that popped up in the comics in like the 90s, but I don't know. I'd just like to see them jump to other media.
I'm amazed that Tom King's never done it, to be honest with you. I've been expecting it ever since the Kite Man thing. I was like, he's going to bust somebody out like King Tut or Egghead and you know, try and bring him into the continuity of it and make him a thing.
Like, Egghead would be tougher because he is so campy, but I feel like there is a badass version of King Tut that you could have fun with. Anyway, next message is from Steve Marshall. It says, "Hey, Andy, Jamie, and Brendan. I know you guys have done retrospectives on Superman the movie and Man of Steel, but do you think you'd ever be up for doing Superman 2? If so, which version do you prefer? Also, as this is a Batman show, I've got to ask something Batman related. Did you guys ever hear about the Gotham High animated show concept? If so, what do you think? Thanks as always, Steven." And he attached the concept art for Gotham High. So have you ever seen that, Jamie? Gotham High?
Do not have any familiarity with it, no.
So I guess it was a pitch for an animated series, and it's like teenage versions of the entire Batman cast of characters, and they're all in high school.
So is Bruce a senior and Dick and Barbara are like freshmen or what?
So if I'm looking at it here, they're all teenagers, and I guess Barbara's there.
Is Alfred the principal?
I have no idea. So in the artwork, that looks like Clayface. Yeah, Clayface, Two-Face, Penguin, Killer Croc, Riddler, it's got to be Batgirl, Bruce, Scarecrow, Catwoman, Joker, Harley, Bane, Mr. Freeze, and Poison Ivy. And they all look like teenagers in high school. So I guess for the sake of this, it does look like they aged up Barbara, so she's a similar age to Bruce. I have seen the artwork before. I think the art is super fun. I really love the art. Do I think I would love it as a show? Maybe not. I'd give it a shot, but I do think that, like, it's... I don't know if it would work, but I think the artwork and seeing these characters reimagined as high schoolers is fun. Jamie, when you get a moment, Google it. It's kind of fun.
All right.
As for Superman 2, absolutely. I would love to do it on this show. It's just a matter of picking the right time. And which version do you prefer, Jamie?
I really am partial to the theatrical cut. And I think the Donner cut, I think, is a cleaner film and probably an overall, and I'm using air quotes here because air quotes are good for radio, a better movie. But, man, I grew up with Superman 2, and it was my favorite, and I loved it, and I thought it was amazing, and I still love it to this day. So I would go for that as far as my preference, because I think I've actually only seen the Donner cut like one time, and that's more about time constraints than anything else. But I got no objection to either one.
Yeah, so it's the unpopular opinion, but I prefer the theatrical version. And not because it's because the theatrical version is finished. And when you watch the Donner cut, it's not finished, and you can tell. So the Donner cut, I'm sure if Donner had been able to make the movie and finish it, it would be the better version. But because they had to cobble together a bunch of other stuff to try and make a cut, those seams are showing, and it doesn't feel like a finished movie. Like, there's one scene that I guess was a rehearsal scene that they put into the movie, and it just stands out like a sore thumb, and it's distracting, and I'm like, it doesn't work. So I think that's why I prefer the theatrical cut, because it is just, it's a complete movie. And the Donner cut is a very fascinating what if. It's just not done. So, yeah. And plus, there are some, I know that, like, people give Superman 2 some grief for some of the humor, and some of the humor is a bit much, but some of it I legitimately do like, and the Donner cut caught all of it, and so I miss some of it when I watch the Donner cut. All right, this is from Tommy Sanders. It says, "Hey, Andy, Jamie, and the Holy BatCast team. Would you ever review Kevin Smith's Superman Lives script on a future episode? It's a really good Superman script. I think you'll enjoy it." Thanks, Tommy. Yeah, would love to do that. I've never read it. Jamie?
I've never read it either, but I'm interested. It'll probably make me want to kick John Peters in the groin about 38 times as we're going through it, but yeah.
No, yeah, I've never read it. I would love to. I think it would be super fascinating. I'm going to do one more email, and then we're going to wrap it up, but because this one just happens to be another Sylvester Stallone question.
What?
Yeah, weird. It's so weird how that happens sometimes, is we'll get like multiple emails from completely different sources that for some reason are the same.
Everybody's got Rambo on the brain because of that trailer coming out, I guess.
I guess so. It says, "Hey, Andy and Holy BatCast. My name's Carl. It's my first time writing into the show, and I'm a first-time listener. I also listen to your Disney Disorder podcast, which I really enjoy. I've got 2 questions about Sylvester Stallone. If they make a live-action Dark Knight Returns, would Sylvester Stallone be good as Batman and Bruce Wayne in that movie? And 2, would the Terminator movies have been different if Sylvester Stallone played the Terminator? He was rumored for the role before Schwarzenegger." Carl, welcome to the show, and thank you for writing in. It's good to hear from you. It's nice to meet you, virtually speaking. Jamie, what do you think? Sylvester Stallone as Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight Returns, and then Sylvester Stallone as the Terminator.
It would be interesting seeing him make the attempt on The Dark Knight Returns, but that's like far and away from what my first choice would be.
Yeah.
And as far as Terminator, yeah, that would have been... I don't think I would have had a problem with him in that role, because I think, and I don't mean to assault him because I love him as an actor. I think he's great. I mean, I'm a fan. I've been a fan of his since I was a little kid. He's got a certain range he's got to stick to, and I think Arnold Schwarzenegger follows this too. But I think that particular part where you're cold and robotic and not putting forth a lot of emotion, I think either guy can do that well. I think Schwarzenegger did. I think Stallone could have. So I think it would have worked. I mean, it's weird to think of that idea. I mean, I still laugh watching, I think it's Last Action Hero, where the cardboard stand-up for Terminator 2 is Stallone sitting on the motorcycle with a shotgun. I
was going to say, he has played the Terminator, if you watch Last Action Hero.
I like that movie, too. Don't at me. So, yeah, it would have been different, but I don't, in some other alternate Earth, it happened, and I think I probably liked it there, too, so.
Yeah. As old Bruce Wayne, I think that could be the only way Sylvester Stallone could get away with it. So I think that maybe, but as Jamie said, he probably wouldn't be my first choice, but I wouldn't say definitely no. I think a world-wearied Bruce Wayne, Sylvester might, he might be okay. And then as the Terminator, I think he would have been great. Like, obviously, it was made for Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's been amazing. But yeah, if history was different and Stallone would have played the Terminator, I think he would have done a great job. Yeah. So there you go. That's it for emails for now, for the time being. There will always be more emails, but we'll wrap it up now. So if you would like to send us a question or comment, something to the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can do that at Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. But that is where we're going to wrap up this episode of the show. Jamie, always a pleasure. Thanks for going to the swamp one last time with me.
Yeah, it was good to be there, and hopefully we get to go back someday.
We can hope. But if the folks at home want to keep up with you on the internet, where can they do so?
Twitter, BatRaider3960.
Great. Do that. I already told you where to follow me, but I'll do it again. Please check out the new show, Why Not Futurama? Please, please, please. I hope you like it. Me and Scotty are having a blast doing it, and you should watch Futurama anyway. And if you're going to watch Futurama anyway, you should listen to us nerd out about it. It's a lot of fun, so check that out, please. But there you go.
I'm still laughing 3 days later because that line Zoidberg delivers about, my mother was a saint, is freaking hilarious. That whole sequence is freaking hilarious. Anyway, sorry.
It's amazing. Young lady, I'm an expert on humans. Now open your mouth and show me your brain.
Zoidberg is a treasure. I love Zoidberg.
He's the best. He's the best. Anyway, thank you guys, as always, for joining us for Holy BatCast. Please do subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. That would be certainly appreciated. And most importantly, as Michael Keaton's Batman says, I want you to tell all your friends about me. Visit holybatcast.com. Follow Holy BatCast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And again, if you want to leave something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can mail that or email that to holybatcast at rf4rm.com. We still have a voicemail line. We don't get a lot of voicemails. People don't like to talk on the phone anymore. That's fine. But you can do that if you want to at 323-366-9246. That'll do it for this episode. On behalf of my pal Jamie, I've been Andy. This has been Holy BatCast, and we'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Holy BatCast is brought to you by real fans for real movies. Remember, the thoughts and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone, and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Lose myself in the swamp forever.
What stopped you?
The thought of never seeing you again.
Yes, that's another thing we have in common.
The night hides so much.
Is there something out there?
The darkness. It's still raging. Fighting to break free. Fighting to come out.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, so we'll face it together. How's that sound?
I would like that very much.